The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, the inimitable Robert Winfrey.
Let me apologize up front to everyone if I sound a little bit less eloquent than usual. I had dental work done today, and I have that gene that says my body kind of just gives the middle finger to Novocaine, so they have to give me a lot more. So if, like, this side of my lip doesn't move, I'm not having a stroke.
I'm glad you said that now. Also, thank you for the warning. I will not make any dick jokes or Asian dick jokes. Mortal Kombat. You were having dental pain. I had been having jaw pain. I made a Kentucky Fried Movie, long weighing, enormous genitals joke. You did not know it was the Kentucky Fried Movie, and you yelled at me, and I'll never forgive you for it.
Well, if that's the worst thing you never forgive me for, we're doing okay. But yeah, again, like if I smile and this side of my face doesn't move, again, this is not neurological, I promise.
I would just assume you're following with me with the Bell's palsy problem.
Ah, damn, you beat me to it.
No, just working the Novocaine through my system. But my dentist office has a standing note on my chart, double the Novocaine.
Nice.
I'd love it if that was like written in big red letters with like a giant Sharpie style circle around it.
It was not in my chart, but on the tray where they have all the tools. If they have notes, they'll leave them for the dentist there. The last time I went in and had to have work done, that's where it was, written in big black ink.
All right, Alexis, hand this back.
Anyway.
Hi, Alexis.
You would not believe what I had to go through to get here.
Did you go through the shortcut?
I thought we agreed we never speak of the shortcut again.
Never speak of the shortcut again, Mark.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand what's happening here.
No, but at least I didn't have to deal with an island where my friends got turned into pigs or, slaughtered by giants or nearly got sucked into a whirlpool.
Can I tell you, I totally saw them getting turned into... When I saw the way they were eating, like me when I have chicken wings or any chicken on the bone, and I was, I know where this is headed. They're going to turn into pigs. Like, well, that was a good time for me to take a piss. So I got up and left. And
you left during the body horror.
You missed a great bit of body horror, Mark.
I don't believe the words mist and body horror exist in the same sentence in my world. So I get back.
She went around and was like grabbing them and pulling the jaws out and tweaking the ears and...
Yeah, this put the substance to shame with how freaky it was.
Trust me, I got back and I heard all about it from my son. He was like... So a couple years ago, when I took my kids to go see, the movie that contains within it the show The Pink Opaque, the one that was like, it was on my top 10.
Saw the TV glow.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't seen, but somehow still remember that.
Yeah. I think you hate it without even seeing it. This is very Robert Winfrey of you. So I remember like that night I was sick to my stomach. And the poor people at the Riverview AMC, got a taste of it. Poor devils. So anyway, I get up I get up during a scene where they're telling a story about the Pink Opaque, and I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom, and I'm in there for a while because I desperadoed the place, and I had to then try to clean up after myself. So I get back, And my son is just like the light in his eyes had died. He's like, Father, he called me Father. He said, Father, I've just seen the most horrible thing. I, to this day, don't know what he's talking about. I still have not seen that scene from I Saw the TV Glow. So it was the same bit here, only instead of like abject horror and the death of his innocence, it's more like excited, like, oh God, Father, you just missed the grossest thing ever. And he was very happy to tell me all about it. I was like, all right, let's just keep watching the movie. Speaking of which, what movie are we talking about?
Well, tonight, everybody, we are tackling Christopher Nolan's 3-hour adaptation of the Odyssey. Hopefully, our show is not as long as the movie we're reviewing this time.
Yeah, probably not. Tonight, yes, as Robert said, tonight on Damn You Hollywood, we're reviewing Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, a $250 million Marvel monies epic action fantasy adapting Homer's timeless tale of war, survival, and the long road home. Matt Damon stars as Odysseus, the King of Ithaca, whose decade-long journey after the Trojan War pits him against monsters, gods, and his own pride as he struggles to reunite with Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway. The ensemble cast also features Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Samantha Morton, Zendaya, and Charlize Theron. Inspired by multiple translations of the poem, as well as
one translation,
classics like Ran and Andrei Rublev, Nolan shot the film entirely on IMAX 70mm cameras across Europe and North Africa. Released on July 17th, 2026, The Odyssey has become both a critical and commercial triumph, continuing Nolan's run as one of Hollywood's premier blockbuster filmmakers. Real quick, Alexis.
Yes.
What's your favorite non-Batman Nolan?
Probably Inception. It's one of the most creative, striking visually films I think I've ever seen. The technical aspect of how they pulled some of that stuff off just blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always impressed when a director has to really think outside the box to make something work. Mm-hmm. And has to almost invent new ways for a scene to be done. And Inception is a groundbreaking feature of that. There's so many parts of it where to this day, I still go, how the hell did they do that? Not to mention, I just love the concept, the idea, fully being aware in a dream and being able to go deeper in that dream. I love the casting. They all had amazing chemistry with one another. I love the action sequences. And of course, visually, it was just unbelievable. I mean, I still remember when the Doctor Strange trailer came out, everyone was like, oh, they're just going Inception on us. And we found out that's the scene when they're in the mirror dimension. So I like to think something that as grandiose as that, and again, the fact that it's an original idea, mm-hmm. which is something that we barely ever see anymore in Hollywood.
That's one thing I say about Christopher Nolan.
You're going to annoy the nerds now.
Other than calling him Big Money Chris Nolan, I always think like he always makes idea pictures. Sometimes it's the very same idea, one picture after another, but we'll talk about that later. Really quick, and again, short answers here because I do want to get to this. We have a lot to talk about. But I am curious, is there a Nolan movie? Nolan's movies sometimes are too big a sandwich for people to swallow, even if they chunk it. Like some of this shit just loses people. Like I'll throw out probably the biggest offender of this, Tenet. It was a real polarizing movie. Robert and I reviewed it. We definitely had some things to say about it. But I'm curious to see if there's a Nolan movie that completely lost you.
It's weird because Tenet, everyone I talk to and I say, have you seen Tenet? Because I did see it in theaters. Mm-hmm. And no one I know has seen it. And because they can't follow it. But every time I think about that movie, I think about the fight scene, the whole "it hasn't happened yet" fight scene, where you have the mm-hmm. parallels in time going between Robert Pattinson finding the dude and then the main character whose name completely escapes me at the moment.
David Washington.
Thank you. I knew it
I'm
ended
the protagonist. Sorry, go ahead.
Having this simultaneously the same fight again. Holy crap, that's amazing. And I always tell people like just turn your brain off and enjoy the awesome. Okay, just turn your brain off and enjoy the awesome. But it is a little. Oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? When someone is very, up their own ass, it's like this,
Pretentious.
Pretentious. Yeah, it's a little pretentious, I think, for its own good. But
it might be his most pretentious movie.
But again, there are scenes in that movie
Dude, we
that
sat
just
through Oppenheimer. Be serious.
I don't think Oppenheimer's pretentious, but
I
don't.
never
I don't
thought
want to.
Oppenheimer was
I don't
pretentious.
want to fight about this either.
I mean, Oppenheimer was still my number one movie of that year. But
I
again,
don't disagree with that either, but
Tenet is a movie that I can't really recommend to someone, but I'm glad I saw it for that one fight scene alone.
All right.
Is that okay? That's like
Sure.
I don't just the one scene was amazing.
So Robert, I have a different question for you. Some more complex question. I want to see if you're willing to dance with me on this. Just thinking about our reviews, Oppenheimer aside.
when have I ever turned down a dance with you, Mark?
This is very true. You're my most consistent dance partner. We reviewed, not necessarily in this order. No, we reviewed 2 out of 3 of these. Me and Sean were the other one. But you've seen Inception. So on this network, Oppenheimer aside, and not counting the Batman stuff, we reviewed 3 interesting and distinct Christopher Nolan movies. Inception, Dunkirk, and Tenet. If you think about... Comments are very hot on this subject. If you think about Dunkirk, Inception, not necessarily in that order, and Tenet, do you see him eventually going to the Odyssey? Like, if there was going to be a guy in Hollywood that was going to do the Odyssey, do you think, based on those 3 movies, Chris Nolan was quite possibly the only big money guy in Hollywood to do it?
I think if you were going to tell me, pick of the major directors going right now who we're going to give $250 million to make an adaptation of the Odyssey. If that's the fundamental premise, like somewhere it's time for another Odyssey because we haven't had a version of it in a while. Who are you going to put this in the hands of?
Who are you going to trust with that amount, that amount of money, that amount of time in this culture, in this with this audience, 2026
Nolan's,
audience?
Respectfully to the rest of the working directors out there, Nolan's the only answer.
Right.
I would actually say Denis Villeneuve.
Maybe if you can't get Nolan, but
I'm not saying not Nolan, but in terms of grand filmmaking, Villeneuve has proven he's capable of something on that scale.
If we were making a list, he'd be on it. But there's a reason why I went in this direction. There's a reason why I said, hey, what, do you give the Odyssey based on his other movies? Do you give the Odyssey to Chris Nolan if that's what he wants based on Dunkirk, Inception, and Tenet?
They sort of contain the disparate elements of the Odyssey. Maybe minus
Good,
Dunkirk.
you know where I'm going with this.
The voyage home, the being separated from your family is the core motivation for Inception, which is the core motivation for Odysseus. You have the war subtext here, modern war subtext here versus Dunkirk, which is of course all about a military operation.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tenet kind of just for like sheer scale and ambition and just being very willing to throw your balls on the table.
I was going to say, speaking of balls, Tenet's it's like almost like the most, other than maybe what they're about to try to accomplish with Doomsday, it's the most balls in the air movie, I've seen in quite some time. Like, there was a lot going on with Tenet.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of that. Here's the other reason you go with Christopher Nolan. This is one of the most under-discussed elements about why Christopher Nolan gets to do whatever the hell he wants. I've talked about it before here, but I'm going to bring it up again because this is his entire career. There are 2 things he has never done. He's never gone over budget, and he's never missed a release date.
He had a really great interview I saw on TikTok that was like, by the time we got to the end of this, we were under budget and we ended before the official wrap date because everyone was just tired of shooting this movie. which is
But
the most Chris Nolan thing I've ever heard him say, and I'm here for it.
But look at, you don't trust the Russo brothers to be under budget and on time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't trust, Villeneuve maybe, but God love Guillermo del Toro. If you give him something this big, it's gonna go longer. You're gonna do a bunch of reshoots.
He was when she said Denis Villeneuve, I was actually thinking Guillermo del Toro, and I was like, but I wouldn't trust him with $250 million and expect it to come in on time.
Ooh, what about Peter Jackson?
Same answer. I think he can do it, but I don't think it turns out like this, and I don't think it comes in under budget.
Oh, when you said Guillermo del Toro, I started thinking monster effects because Lord no, I would want to see Guillermo del Toro's take on the Greek monsters. I think he would do an amazing job with the Cyclops, Circe, and the Sirens. That would be so freaking cool. Zach, go sit in the corner. You know what you just said.
All right, so just to wrap up this discussion, Robert, so you can see the through line from, in no particular order, Inception, Dunkirk, and Tenet to the Odyssey.
And it turns out there's a through line from Oppenheimer to it as well, but that's because
somebody also mentioned even the core motivation for Interstellar. So I think the Odyssey is well in line with, like, I don't know how to say this because I want to, my instinctual language was to go Nolan verse, but I actually think that's a bit crude. I think if you look at Nolan's canon of film, the Odyssey sits right in there because and the reason why I'm bringing this up is we initially, especially after Oppenheimer got announced, going all the way back to Tenet, he had a big falling out with Warner Brothers. I don't want to go through the whole history again, so let me get through this really quickly. He had a falling out with Warner Brothers because it was in the middle of COVID, and they were like, HBO Max, and he was like, fucking IMAX, you crazy people, and they were like, but COVID, and not all the theaters are open, and he was like, I don't care. So that relationship breaks, and there's a bidding war from the studios over Chris Nolan, and Universal wins, and they gave him the store, and the first thing he pitches them is Oppenheimer, and Robert and I had a hearty laugh about it. Then we saw it and we went, oh, that's what he's doing. Somebody goes back to him again and says, the Odyssey, if you're a Universal executive, by this point, there's enough institutional trust with Chris Nolan. All you hear is whatever, you don't hear the Odyssey and think to yourself, how are you planning to pull this off with, a modern audience, you crazy person? You just hear Chris Nolan want something and go, here's your check. Have at it.
I'm going to make a literary comparison. This may not be the right audience for it. Not that you're stupid people, but this is a bit in the weeds on the book side of things. He's kind of like Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how books work, if you're not self-published, what you do is you shop manuscripts around. And different publishing houses, your agent will should do this for you, but different publishing houses want different things. This is the wrong imprint for a fantasy book. Go to this one.
Yeah.
We're looking for fantasy books that deal with, for a while, everything had to be Game of Thrones, and then everything had to be whatever, and then so what we're looking for. So most writers are kind of chasing those because that's what the publishers are looking for, and you're trying to sell your novel to them. If you're Stephen King, you take your manuscript and you give it to the publisher and say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm Stephen King. And this is the book we're publishing this year. And they go, yes, sir. We published the book.
Here's your check. Away with you now.
Go make another one. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what Nolan does at the moment, is whatever strikes his fancy, everyone kind of is just happy to let him do, because he's
big money Chris Nolan. And this
whatever you think about individual movies,
mm-hmm.
he hasn't really stumbled.
I think when we did the Oppenheimer review, we went, because I remember I cut it for TikTok at the time. We did a whole thing on who is big money Chris Nolan. We kind of traced, he starts off not big money Chris Nolan. He just starts off as a guy who did Memento. Then he gets Batman. He doesn't, and even then, he isn't really coming out of the gates with Batman Begins as anything spectacular. It's The Dark Knight, and then followed by The Dark Knight Rises that we begin the big money Chris Nolan run.
When we talked about this, the track line goes as follows: Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Inception, and we're done.
Yeah.
You do those 4 in a row.
Right.
As long as you don't trip over yourself, you're golden.
Yep. And
I always forget that he did The Prestige.
And the funny thing about Chris Nolan, and we're going to get into the plot, such as there is for the Odyssey, is barring COVID, he doesn't have any failures. Like, all of his movies do well or do exceptional. Like, his baseline is still profitable.
Yeah,
this is how you build institutional trust.
Again, like you said, I think apart from Tenet, he's been profitable minimum with everything.
Yeah. All right, so I wanted to talk about that because one, I'm gonna do a thing on Dunkirk, Inception, and Tenet in a little bit, but I kind of wanted to use this as my R&D playground and really test that theory, and you did. So, all right, let's get into the Odyssey. Let's tell us about this wonderful man, Odysseus, as he fools a bunch of people into taking in a gift, therefore ruining.
Stop. I'm not joking. If you don't want to have the argument with me about that, don't do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Because there's a whole. I'll save it. Save it. You almost derailed me, and I almost went off that way.
That's what I do.
I'm gonna do this in purely chronological order. Understand the presentation of the Odyssey is always nonlinear. In the original Homer, it starts with Telemachus going to see Menelaus, who tells him that he's heard that Odysseus is held captive by Calypso, and then he escapes from Calypso and washes up with the Phaeacians, and then he tells them the story of everything that happened until this point. It kind of, weirdly enough, Homer invented the flashback. Then he relates that, then we get the conclusion. So the story is always presented non-linearly. I'm going to tell the story linearly because I don't want to jump back and forth, and I forget all the places where specifically Nolan cut it back and forth.
So it kind of remind me of how he did the first of his Batman movies.
Yeah, a little bit. There's that kind of back and forth. He always plays with time in very interesting ways.
Not complaining. I mean, I think they both work well.
So first, let me tell you what's going on in Ithaca, then I'll get to everything that happens with Odysseus until the two stories converge. So in Ithaca, the Trojan War has been over for many years now. Almost everyone's back. Odysseus has not yet returned. His wife, Penelope, is trying to deal with a bunch of suitors going, Ithaca needs a king. And she's putting that off because she loves Odysseus, and Telemachus is there, and he's not happy with all these very rude people being in his house, destroying his inheritance. And he is at odds with them, and he winds up he's given word that if you want to know something about your father, go see King Menelaus of Sparta. He might have information for you. So he goes over there, he talks with Menelaus, gets a little bit of information. They actually don't give the same bit of information in the movie as in the original, but he gets a little bit of information, resolves to go home, and at a minimum, okay, I can take the throne, I can be king, and I can deal with all these jerks once I have the authority of the crown, because he doesn't understand how power works because he's an idiot. It's fine, he's supposed to be an idiot. As far as Odysseus goes, after the destruction of Troy, he and his men head off to go back home. They take a different route from everyone else. It doesn't actually matter because everyone has a bad voyage home after the destruction of Troy. Because the gods are capricious and fickle, and despite Athena and Poseidon throwing their weight behind the Greeks in the Trojan War, as soon as it was over, they went, yeah, screw them Greeks, and made everyone's life miserable.
Wasn't there also a thing about how they didn't do the proper sacrifice when they left Troy?
That depends on which version of the story you're talking about.
Yeah, I've heard some, because in this movie they show that they sacked the temple. And
that's always a thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they go a bit more southerly because Odysseus is like, if I have to be around Menelaus anymore, I'm just going to kill him. Or Agamemnon. I can't deal with this guy anymore. So they go more south. They wind up a little bit lost, trying to talk with people on the coastlines, and there's people coming from the sea, Mark. The sea people. The people from the sea. People from the sea. The sea people. Oh, yeah, it's all coming together now. And so no one trusts them because they're Greeks and they're from the sea. And they get a little bit lost. They find an island. A bunch of them get trapped in the cave. This is with the Cyclops, Polyphemus, who kills a few of them, gets blinded. They escape, but now they're kind of lost even more. They wind up on an island of golems because there's no other reason for a small child to be equipped with full plate mail.
I thought they were just supposed to be giants.
In the original, they're giants. They're ogres and who eat men. But in this, they're people wearing full steel plate armor several centuries before the advent of even really reliably worked iron. They get driven off. They get lost. They wander around. They find another island. And here they find a nice old woman, sort of old woman, who turns them into pigs. This is where we get Circe, who is a witch straight out of like Robert Eggers instead of the Odyssey. But she gives them advice because she's a witch and warns him that to go forward, you will have to go to the land of the dead to consult the blind prophet Tiresias, and you might also have to go by, go do that. So they travel to the land of the dead. They talk with the dead, where they get more advice from the blind prophet, who tells them you're going to have to pass by Scylla and Charybdis. And Charybdis is a giant whirlpool that will swallow you all whole. Scylla is a monster of the rocks who will eat 6 of you. Take your pick. And by the way, after that, you're going to wind up near the island where the sun god keeps his cattle. Don't touch the cattle of the sun god. It's a bad idea. But your men are going to do it because I'm a prophet. And then they're all going to die. You're the only one who's going to survive this whole thing, Odysseus. I really hate to break it to you. And Odysseus says, no, I can still save everyone. So they go, they pass by Scylla and Charybdis, and the only scene in this movie that actually has color. They go to the island of the sun god to repair the boat after the trials of nearly getting sucked into the whirlpool and then going through the straits where Scylla eats several of them. But they can't get off the island. There's a wind that just never stops, and they can't row against it. And they're stuck here, and they start running out of supplies, and eventually the men kill and consume the cattle of the sun god. And predictably, this leads to disaster. They're able to leave the island, but soon after, their boat is caught in a terrible storm. It's broken. Odysseus is on one part. Everything else gets struck by a thunderbolt, and Zeus just smites them. Odysseus washes up on the island of Calypso, where he spends the next, 7 years, give or take, where she drugs him with the lotus because he's a traumatized war veteran, so now he's on opium. And eventually he gets his mind back together, and he leaves. He throws himself on the mercy of the court of the gods, and the gods wash him up on Ithaca. The whole way through this, by the way, he's having visions of Zendaya, who still sucks, as Athena. He washes up on the shores of Ithaca. In disguise, he goes to his home. Along the way, one of the people he talked with in the underworld is Agamemnon, whose homecoming was not great. He is murdered by his wife and her lover, that she took during his time at the Trojan War, and then his son kills both of them, and it's a whole thing.
Well, that's what you get for sacrificing your daughter so you can win the war.
He's from House Atreides. He's cursed to begin with. I'm not even kidding. Like, he's from House Ardius, who is the house that produces Tantalus, who tried to feed the gods humans. If you don't know why Tantalus is...
Oh, I know who Tantalus is. We talked about him when we reviewed the second season of Percy Jackson.
Anyway.
I wish my daughter were here. My daughter's really into this and had the whole Percy Jackson talk, and I could just I wish this was like a basketball game, and I could just sub her in for myself.
So he arrives home. He gets word that his son is going to be ambushed by people at the Temple of Pylos. So he goes there to save his son, who is, as previously established, kind of an idiot. He saves him. They arrive back home, and his son does figure out that he doesn't tell him who he is initially. He does eventually figure it out when the glorious scene of the sad old dog recognizing his master one last time before dying, which is just, always heart-wrenching.
I was going to say, all of us who watch Futurama shed a tear for Seymour.
Indeed. Telemachus at that point realizes, oh, you're Odysseus. But they devise a plan to finally deal with the suitors, who are, again, they've tried to kill Telemachus. They're all ill-mannered. They're petty. They're, violent, disgraceful human beings. So we get the famous sequence where he shows up. Penelope arrives. He arrives in disguise first. He talks with Penelope a little bit. She kind of figures out that it's him at that point, or at least highly suspects, because Penelope's not a moron. She devises a plan for the suitors. There's also a minor subplot in the rest of this where Penelope's held them at bay by saying, I have to weave a funeral shroud for my father-in-law. And this is a pious thing that's very important, and they're not quite desperate and uncouth enough to violate that particular tradition. But every night she just undoes all the weaving she did before, so she can just go on forever with this. One of her handmaids, the treacherous Mia Goth, who does not get her comeuppance on screen, much to my personal chagrin, tells the suitors, and they say, yeah, this ain't gonna stand. Finish your work legitimately, or we're gonna have problems here, lady. And at the end of all this, she says, okay, look, if I have to choose one of you idiots, I'd like someone who's at least partially the man my husband is. Here's his bow. String it. Repeat a feat of skill and strength that he has done before. String his bow. Shoot it through these axe heads. And whoever can do this, I'll marry you. And none of the suitors can do it because they all suck. And then Odysseus does it. And they all go, oh, crap. It's Odysseus. And he then proceeds to murder the vast majority of them. He doesn't kill all of them in this version, which was a very stupid decision by Nolan, but more on that later.
Oh, see, I liked it that a bunch of them just immediately said, oh, no, screw this. I'm out. And they bowed down. It's like, nope, King's back. I am not. I know when I'm beat.
So he kills a bunch of them, including Robert Pattinson, who is, as always, a glorious slimeball. I say that with respect for his abilities, because it's not easy to be that slimy. And then he tells his wife, I have finally returned home. Except now we got to leave. Because exile. And we will leave the land to our children. And now as our age of bronze collapses, they can deal with the fallout. We're going off to Florida to retire happily in a large house.
I thought they were going west to be with the elves.
And that's it. That's the Odyssey.
All right, Alexis, tell us how much you love the movie.
I've always been a huge fan of the Odyssey because I'm a crazy huge fan of Greek mythology. So
good. You and my sister should go. You and my daughter should go bowling.
Fellow big fan of Greek mythology here. So
this is the worst review we're going to do this year. Go on.
Side note, Robert, props to you for actually getting majority of the name pronunciations right, because I'm still massacring the hell out of them.
I do my best.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I want to talk about actually is the technical aspect of this film, because this movie is going to sweep the freaking Oscars.
Now it's this and Project Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, but the technical aspect for it is incredible.
It's not going to sweep. There's a bunch it will probably win.
It'll get a lot of nominations.
Oh
yeah. They shot on location for several areas. I love that the scene of the underworld was shot. It was apparently shot in Iceland during the that all day light under the midnight sky, which gives it that really unearthly look. And they actually did bury the actors, and they had it on time. It's like, okay, and now jump up so they wouldn't run out of air. So it's like, holy crap, that was done practically, and it was incredible. The music, this is the same composer who did the music for Sinners, and the score for this is incredible.
This was I'm going to disagree with you on that when I get to, but this is Ludwig Göransson, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Want to make sure I got the name right.
Yeah. From what I've read, he wrote the score using mostly instruments that would be found in ancient Greece, horns and lyres and things like that. The music that plays when they sack Troy, the way it builds upon itself as they try to get the gates open for the rest of the soldiers, is bone chilling. And I loved it. The scenes of them at the sea, the storm. There's the storm scene after they slaughter the cattle of Helios. You really feel like you are sitting in that storm. The way the lighting is done whenever the lightning crashes, the surround sound of the thunder and the shaking of the boat. Gonna be honest, it gave me a headache just because it was so immersive. It was intense. And I loved it. The acting, I loved all of it. I'm not going to, jump on the apple crate about screaming about how they all spoke with American accents. I don't care. I legit don't. I am not one of those people that say, they didn't have a single Greek in this. I really don't care. Okay? Majority of these actors are ones that Nolan has worked with before. We know that our directors love to use the actors that they have good reputations with. Matt Damon, this is Matt Damon's third movie with Nolan after Interstellar and Oppenheimer. I loved Robert Pattinson as Antinous, I think is how you pronounce his name. Antinius. You weren't kidding about him being a slime ball. I love just even the little touches when Penelope tells the suitors to try to string the bow. He's the one who's been fighting the hardest for her hand, but he will not string the bow because he refuses to look weak in front of the other men. When it's his turn, he says, well, none of us can do it, so you should just choose among the losers. When Odysseus starts fighting, he's hiding behind the columns and yelling at him, get the swords, get the spears. It's really good writing for him. I'm fine with Elliot Page in their role as
pick hostage number one.
I thought it worked because they showed that Page's character was a young child when they were essentially drafted into war. It was one of those, like, okay, you're going to go start training, and by the time you're old enough, we're going to be at Troy and you can, use a sword. So it worked to have Elliot Page play a very young soldier. And I enjoyed the speech they give in the Land of the Dead. Just, it's like, well, it's like, who's minding your wife and your son back in Ithaca? I am kind of laughing though, because I was looking at the screen before we logged on and I realized, like, why is the poster the back of Agamemnon's head? Why is I do not understand.
The marketing people really thought his costume was cool.
I don't know. It just kind of makes it like
he's a Fortnite skin now. I'm not kidding.
I know you're not.
As all good things must be.
Naturally. The thing I was thinking about the most when I left the theater today was we often talk on the show about movies that remind us why we go to the movies. We talk about the movies that we want to see on theaters versus the movies like, oh, you can wait to see it on streaming. It's not a big deal.
In fact, this is the first movie in probably over a year, if not longer, that I bought the tickets on Friday instead of morning of or like the day before, specifically because I got an alert saying that the times were selling out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to see it Sunday morning. And so Friday night I get home from naked swimming, and that's an important detail in this story. And I'll
get into vascular detail about other naked swimming when I get what Nolan changed and why it was bad.
Perfect. And I get an alert on my phone that, like, get your tickets now because we're selling them out like hotcakes. And I'm like, fuck. And I jumped onto AMC. And even then, I couldn't find I could not find an IMAX showing at a time that was good for me and my kids, where I wasn't sitting either to the far left or the far right. And as we know, I'm a progressive conservative, so I had to sit somewhere in the middle. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. But so I ended up seeing in the Dolby Theater, which the concession there is at least the seats are nice. Continue.
I wanted to see this in IMAX too, but saw this with a friend, and neither one of us have a lot of money, and IMAX tickets are kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So I said,
Definitely.
okay, look, it's like as much as I want to see this in IMAX, let's just go to the matinee and grab the regular seats. But it's kind of funny because I called my mom when I left the year. She'd been trying to get a hold of me, and she's like, "Where the hell were you?" I'm like, "I was seeing the Odyssey. It's a long ass movie. I'm sorry." And she said, "Yeah, I know. I want to see it." And I paused. I'm like, "I asked you weeks ago if you wanted to see this, and you said no. But now that the reviews are and you want to see it." And she's like, "Yeah, fine." I'm like, "Okay, fine. You know what?
Does your mother often jump on the bandwagon? Like, I don't want to see this nonsense, this bullshit movie. Oh, lots of people like it. Take me, Alexis. What are you doing, you terrible daughter?
It's just interesting because usually it's a movie that she does. It's if she knows it's coming out, she's been wanting to see it for a while. She doesn't often wait until after she hears the critical review. It's like, oh wait, no, now I want to see it. I asked my family, and my mother and my aunt specifically said, no, I don't want to see this because I had to read the Odyssey as a kid, and I hated that assignment. And I told her, I said, look, I will go see the movie with you again, but you're buying IMAX tickets because I want to see
Way to be
this.
a terrorist, Alexis. Good job.
That's just negotiation, Mark. That's not terroristic.
No.
You say good negotiation. I say emotional terrorist.
But to the point.
That's your relationship with your parents, Mark. Don't project it that much onto everyone else.
Whatever.
To the point.
That's how I know I was right.
This is a movie that reminds you why we go to the movies. This is a movie that gives you an experience. Again, you are sitting in the theater, and I wanted to see this on IMAX, but even seeing it in standard was still incredible. This is not a film you wait to see on streaming. You need to see this in theaters.
Do you have any other actual criticism of the movie, or are you just doing your marketing pitch?
I genuinely don't have any criticisms. Okay.
I got some stuff to say. One, let me warn everybody ahead of time. I'm looking at the Odyssey. Robert, bite your fist. No different than I look at Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. It's a fantasy epic. It's what Chris Nolan wanted to do, and in his world, it's colorblind. I don't know why Chris Nolan wanted to do it this way.
Here's my only. Let me say this as not to say you're an idiot. This is for everyone out there because everyone's doing this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't confuse myth with fiction or fantasy. They are not the same thing.
Okay.
This is a myth.
I am bringing this up because the rest of the world should know under what way I'm reviewing this movie. You and I already had this discussion. So anyway,
that's not just for you. That's for everyone who goes.
No, I know, but I'd like to get to it.
Okay.
Chris Nolan decided he wanted to do it this way. Who am I to tell him his vision is wrong? And I don't feel like arguing.
Well, in theory, anyone from the cultural heritage that he's messing with has the right to complain about it, right?
Wait until it's your turn to get on a soapbox and scream about the same thing everybody else is making YouTube videos about. Anyway, I'm accepting this the way that the man does. I'm not having an argument with this director in absentia. He's not here to defend himself. He's not here to tell me why he wanted to do it this way. All I can do is kind of accept the work as it's being presented. So with that having said that, let me deal with the big elephant in the room, and that is the argument that everyone's having about the casting choices. I understand everyone thought Elliot Page was going to be, I think it's Achilles, and it turned out not to be. And then when I actually saw the movie, and I saw what they did with Elliot Page, I was like, wow, that was almost perfect casting. We need a small man to nail this fucking thing and be a decoy. Sure, that works. Given Elliot Page when he was Ellen Page, was a good enough actress. And she's as Elliot Page, he is still a good actor. But for physically what they wanted him to do, it made me retroactively laugh at a lot of the videos. I was like, oh, he's casted as the most masculine person ever. It's like, no, he wasn't. Maybe see the movie before you start making your stupid YouTube videos, you disingenuous pricks. Anywho, with that out of my Nope. With that out of the way. Lupita Nyong'o, again, if they were giving her more to do and they had given her a bigger role, I might have been aggravated with that particular choice, but she's in like 2 or 3 scenes, doesn't do a hell of a lot, and then we're done with her. Barely speaks. Oh, and by the way, like when they show her up close, like half her face is fucking scarred. I'm like, whatever.
For no reason whatsoever.
But like that's my point. Like the reason why I'm starting with this is because there were so many videos on YouTube about what a travesty this was. And then I see what Chris Nolan did, and it was like, I know this is never going to happen, and I'm kind of howling at the moon, but maybe watch the movie before you make your dumb videos and complain about something that wasn't worth complaining about. For what they used Elliot Page for what they used Lupita Nyong'o for, those are perfectly adequate casting choices, and I kind of laughed at the Elliot Page stuff. Lupita Nyong'o, I was like, yeah, this is fine. So having said all that, first of all, I like the movie a lot. This is going to be in my top 10 for the year. I think this is going to be nominated for most of the Oscars that it can be nominated for.
Mm-hmm.
I know Robert's going to yell and scream and kick up dust over this. So, this is going to be one of those where this is Mark Radulich for the defense and the prosecution can go after. When he did Oppenheimer, he was like, well, we have this thing. It got away from us. We allowed it to get away from us. It maybe didn't get away from us. We actively used it, and we killed a lot of people. And the bit there at the end, I kind of like, the reflection on the use of the Trojan horse. And it's why I was joking about it in the beginning, but I apparently twisted Robert's nipple incidentally, as I always do. So whatever. I'll take my lickings when it comes. But I liked the idea of this was a gift. It was actually a ruse, and we're worse off for it. That was it. I like Nolan's idea, same as in Oppenheimer, of what was this worth doing if we lose our humanity in the process? The whole sack of Troy and Odysseus's reflection on man's inhumanity to man, I really liked. I liked that Nolan is using the Odyssey to kind of talk about that sort of thing. War is hell, and what we do in war is inhumane when it's done. People might not know that because we haven't done a war in quite some time. Do a lot of police actions, but not a lot of wars. But when you actually let war happen and release the people that we train to kill, the kinds of things that we do to each other are horrendous. It's the worst kind of horror. And I know war is kind of a necessary evil, and this is not me being a peacenik, but I think Chris Nolan reflecting on what war does to us, what we do in war, and what happens to us when we sacrifice civility, thematically with the Trojan horse. I liked all of that. I like the stuff inside the Trojan horse where they were talking about.
Oh,
shut
up.
We were in there for a while, and there was piss and shit everywhere, and I was like, "Oh, that's fun."
Well, didn't they say 2 of the men drowned on the first day when the water came in?
Everyone's crying. It's like, "Oh, why does Chris Nolan have to make everything gritty?" And I was like, "Oh, I like the attention to detail there."
That is something. It's like every time you see in a film or a story arc about the Trojan horse, it's just and then boom, the soldiers popped out. It's like, you ever stop to think that the soldiers were probably in there shitting all over each other and puking
if they were in there long enough,
out?
yeah. So
it's like that's not comfortable.
I was amused by that for whatever the objection to it's going to end up being, which I'll accept.
My objections are going to be multiple, but for the record, I'm with you that I appreciate that, especially coming from John Bernthal, who as an actor has a real way of, when he talks about the gravitas of that.
All I could hear is his speech on the rooftop in Daredevil season 2 as he was telling that story. But go on.
But coming from, again, Bernthal as an actor has a wonderful way of conveying the kind of very gritty nastiness of this kind of material in a believable way.
It is the biggest, weirdest mix of both masculine and sing-songy. That's why I mean, if you'll remember his speech on the rooftop in Daredevil 2 and Daredevil season 2 when Daredevil's chained to the roof, and I can't remember like what phrase he used, but he was saying the same phrase over and over and over again. I think it's actually the name of the episode, and he's kind of going through it. It was that same kind of cadence and rhythm. Also, every time I hear John Bernthal talk, all I hear is his character from We Own This City, which my son laughed at when I told him about it. I was just like, John Bernthal can't sound like anybody, it can't sound like anything but a cop from Baltimore. So anyway, so I like the attention to detail inside the Trojan Horse. This is a very pretty looking movie. It's not colorful. There's a difference between pretty and colorful, I think, in terms of like darker, muted, somewhat depressing color palettes. I actually think he did it well. I was impressed with the amount of the use of like practical effects. This is a hell of a movie. Like they were talking about some of the stuff they actually shot at sea. Some of it shot in a tank. Some of it shot at sea. The sound design. If there's something better, if there's better sound design this year than this, I will eat my hat. Because this is some of the like, especially with the waves crashing against the ship, the creaking of the ship, and everything. Like, it wasn't quite Evil Dead Rise, where the girl's eating the glass, where I had kind of a visceral reaction to it. But it's up there. It was every time I heard that, like something like, you think about the Age of Antiquity and what those years of invention did to the human body. It's a lot of wet wood rubbing up against bare skin for hours at a time. The amount of like rowing that has to happen and what it does to your hands. I mean, some of these pussies couldn't fucking paddle down a river, let alone do what those guys are doing. And I mention it not as a knock against Gen Z. Oh, I can't stop and I won't stop, but more as like what that does to people and how people are affected by it was very much represented in those scenes in this film. Again, you can't knock Chris. You can disagree with his interpretation of things or the reason why he sees the world the way that he does, but man, his attention to detail is some of the best I've seen in filmmaking. It is fucking incredible. Tom Holland's fine. He's
let me jump briefly on that because this is part of my review.
Mm-hmm.
This is maybe the best acting Tom Holland has ever done, and it's still not great, but you can tell with him that, oh, wait, I'm not just doing everything on a green screen. This is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah, Tom Holland's youthful face really worked in his favor in this. He's a good actor. He's always been a good actor. If you've seen anything outside of the Marvel movies he's done. He's a fine actor, but this is, I think, the first time you really got to see him, and he got a smorgasbord of great actors to work against. Robert Pattinson is a phenomenal actor. He's good in almost anything he does. He do whatever he does with exception anything that's asked of him. Anne Hathaway is fine. She's being Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway is good in everything she does. As far as Matt Damon, here's the thing. Matt Damon's fine in this as well. I don't think he's exceptional. I don't think he's bad. I think he's perfectly adequate for what they're asking him to do. Which is the exact same thing I'm going to say about Zendaya, where I don't think she was asked to do anything else, not near as I could tell in the film. And Zendaya does one thing very well, and that is deadpan. And because she's asked to just sort of be George Lucas's impression of a celestial figure, just be deadpan and emotionless, she does it really, really well.
I did like the concept that she may have just been a hallucination, because we see that if it was Athena, she took the form of the priestess from the temple that they slaughtered.
Yeah,
well,
I wasn't
just
really
a
paying very
hallucination.
close
Nolan
attention to
doesn't.
that.
Nolan's not going to lean into the supernatural aspect of any of this. She's a hallucination.
Yeah,
the whole thing is utterly mundane.
One
of
my
my
big
gripes
she was no
with it.
different than Jiminy Cricket. So, but I'm talking about her acting, if we could say on point. It was like she was there to kind of for Matt Damon to bounce off of at times. She was perfectly fine. I think my favorite performance in this is actually Charlize Theron. Like, her and Matt Damon had a lot of great sexual chemistry together. I was really into those scenes. I was curious to see where that was going. I thought she looked good.
Lamentably, nowhere.
That's the power of Charlize Theron. She's got sexual chemistry with nearly, I can't think of a movie she was in where she didn't have sexual chemistry with her co-star.
What's the Netflix
she's
movie?
just that hot.
Shut up. What's the Netflix movie we reviewed?
The Old Guard.
No, the other one. The one with what's his nuts from the one we just did a few months ago in April.
Oh, Apex.
Apex. Yeah. Before you finish that sentence, watch Apex.
Okay.
She has negative interactivity with Taron Egerton in that.
Yeah, it was.
I would also argue she has no sexual chemistry with Mark Wahlberg from The Italian Job, but
it's been a while since I've reviewed that one. But yeah, she has great sexual chemistry with Matt Damon. I really enjoyed their scenes. And we're going to talk about this because it made me laugh, because this was another thing where the angry white boys on YouTube were making videos about it, and people were complaining. And then when I saw it in context, I was like, I hate this world and everyone in it. So if you see the commercial, Matt Damon is yelling, "Let's go," and it looks like he's leading an army. And people were like, why are we using like Fortnite language? All right, I'm not a gamer. It didn't really reach me that way, but that's what everyone's telling me. And I'm just like, okay, I guess we're doing modern parlance, and he's yelling, "Let's go," because that's what stupid boys do now. Cool, whatever. Then I watched the scene, and he's there, and he's talking to the undead, and then the undead are impatient with him, and now he's being chased by zombies a la Scooby-Doo, and then screams out, "Let's go!" And I bursted out laughing in the theater, because it suddenly occurred to me he's yelling, "Let's go, get the fuck on the ship, run, zombies are chasing me." And I laughed my ass off, and they changed the meaning of it. And golly, I wish people would watch films before they criticize them, instead of it, I would watch films first and then criticize them, instead of the other way around.
When your marketing team decides all it wants to do is court controversy, that's all you're going to get.
It made me laugh, and again, I'll say it again, watch the movie, then criticize, not the other way around. So that, I thought it was funny, and I was okay with "Let's go" once I realized what was happening in that scene. Also, I think
still should have used a better phrase, but
I don't know, Robert. You ever been chased by zombies? Sometimes you're not thinking about your politics.
They're military people. Retreat.
Again, I don't know. How many zombie armies has he fought in his time?
It is such a mundane factor that's like, he ran because the dead, but there was like a fuck ton of soldiers who said, "You haven't paid respects to us when we died because, we were eaten by cyclopses or giants."
He's running from zombies, and he's like, "Get on the ship, let's go, go, go." Like
again, I'm just saying, there's plenty of ways you could have avoided the entire controversy.
Sounded like me when I was trying to get my family out the door on a vacation. Let's go, get your shoes on. So anyway, I thought it was fine. The last thing I'm going to say, I make a lot of AI music. It tends to annoy people, and then I get criticisms for it because it's like, oh, well, you use the computer to do art. You're a shitty person. Okay. Except it's a guy named Jerris Johnson, I think his name is, and he does a song called "Da Bang, Da Bang, Da Bang." And the chorus is, "Here comes da bang, da bang, da bang," which is only slightly stupider than "Ba with the ba, da dang, diggy." And that's a human. And I'm not, and so all I could think to myself, where am I going with this? All I could think to myself was when Matt Damon kills all the suitors, or almost all the suitors in the castle, all I could think about was what would have made me laugh is if they had said it to, "Here comes da bang, da bang, da bang." Just a rocking good time as he's slaughtering guys. I understand it would have broken immersion, but considering everything else that happens in this movie, why the fuck not? In any case, it was fun to watch him go all Kill Bill in there. As one man fights an army of people.
It would have been if it was properly choreographed and actually had weight to it.
But, for what it was, I thought it was okay. Overall, is it my favorite Nolan? Not really. I think it's good. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I didn't want to run to the bathroom at all, except for when I did, because I didn't want to watch the guys turn into pigs, because I knew it was going to be gross.
I gotta say, add this. In interviews, Nolan has said the next film he wants to make is a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And between the scene with Cersei and the scene with the Cyclops, he is like, yes, you have the chops. Go ahead.
Watch him do Metamorphosis. So, anyway, the overall, and I'll pass it over to Robert. I think it's a well-made movie. I think it's up there with Oppenheimer. I think Chris Nolan is the best working director we've got that you can count on to make a movie that people actually want to go see in theaters. All right, and now Robert, we're in for the prosecution. Robert?
Let me start with the positive. Again, Tom Holland does some of the better work he's done in a long time here because, again, he's actually told to act. Robert Pattinson is still a glorious slime ball, and Hathaway is good. Matt Damon is generally acceptable. A couple of scenes made me roll my eyes, and then there's a couple that he's actually very good in. So he's a little bit up and down, but as the lead of the movie, he does a fine enough job. The Rainbow Coalition of his boat is iffy as far as acting goes. The guy he's always interacting with, I think, doesn't do
The
a great
Indian
job.
fella?
Yeah.
What don't you like about him? Because he seemed adequate.
If you're supposed to be like, there's a few different times when he's supposed to feel serious remorse for what's going on, and he's just kind of a blank slate.
Okay.
There's that entire group also. I don't know where they fell down on this, but there's a handful of scenes where that crew is supposed to be like really, really desperate, and none of the emotional desperation comes across from them.
You know, it would
They've
have
come
helped
across
if they
as
had
mildly
actually.
annoyed.
I don't know if if it's like this in the poem or not. I don't remember. Again, it's been years. But I think more interactions with the guys on the boat to where you kind of like Dunkirk, where there's guys on the boat, you get to know the guys on the boat, so when stuff happens to them, you have an emotional attachment. Other than Stormtrooper number 3 has been eaten by rock monster.
Now, Odysseus did decide to sail with a lot of red shirts.
Yeah, there's that. So the supporting crew, literally the supporting crew on the boat, I think kind of dropped the ball a bit. Zendaya, I still think is not very good. I don't know why she's a thing, but she's just, I don't think she's a good actress.
Have you ever seen Challengers yet?
No, why would I?
Because I think she does a really good job of acting in that movie. I'd be curious to see if you agree or disagree. If you can, divorce yourself from your prejudices for 2 hours. Go on.
My prejudices and I are very well entrenched at this point. You know that.
Yes, I'm asking you to evolve.
I thought
I'm
you guys
asking her to
saw
do
that-
I'm asking her to do good work and something worth seeing.
So I thought you guys saw that in the build up to the Oscar nominations because that movie was a favorite to. I don't think it got any nominations, but it was a favorite to get some.
Oh no, Challengers? No, Challengers didn't get nominated for shit.
If it had, we might have reviewed it, but it didn't.
I know, but I know that
I reviewed it on movies that don't suck. I'm just saying, like, you keep slamming Zendaya, but I don't think you've seen enough of her work. Either you and I should really just watch the fucking drama, and then we can have this fight on our own.
I don't want to watch that movie, Mark.
All right, later on, me and you are going to find a Zendaya movie we can both watch. But or just watch Challengers and get back to me. Continue.
Look, everyone tells me that she's supposed to be, a human in Euphoria, and I don't
want to watch Euphoria, Robert.
Neither do I.
No, that is not showing up on TV Party Tonight.
My point there is, I've never seen her turn in something that couldn't have been done better by somebody else.
Are you including Dune in that?
Yes.
Move on.
Never mind that's a terribly written character, but that's a whole other discussion. So Zendaya is present and could have been anybody, as she brings nothing. I agree. Charlize Theron is fine. I love the sound design. I love the commitment to practical effects. Not hard to stay off the table.
Are you domestic violencing your cat?
No, that didn't hit.
Please go on.
The commitment to practical effects, the commitment on location shooting, it's all tremendous. It's all definitely worthwhile. The music's iffy. I think my big problem with it is there's times when
it's a lot of a cat being dragged across a Casio.
Some of it is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is unbearably intrusive and overbearing and unpleasant in ways that make you not want to listen to it ever again.
Kind of reminded me of a Refn film.
A what film?
William Wingding Refn.
Göransson is generally a pretty solid composer, but I mean, respectfully, this needed Hans Zimmer, and he and Nolan don't really work together anymore. So that was, again, perfectly fine. Again, good in places, bad in places. Son of a bitch.
God, this review.
The other cat decided it was a great idea to try and get
normally
on the
I
table.
yell at Alexis to take her ADHD meds.
You should have just said you were yelling at your brothers.
No, my brothers are fine. That's the cats, and you walk in your litter box. I don't want your feet on my table. This is very simple.
That's why I don't own cats.
I'm going to go to the money if this doesn't get going.
Hang on, I'm getting there. So that's all, again, that's all pretty good. As a total technical achievement, the movie is quite good. There's bunches and bunches of places where it falls down. The decision to make everything gray and overcast was a bad one. I don't mind certain places in the story looking like that. You want to have the Lestrygonians look like that, their island? Fine. Whatever. Cersei's island still looking flat and kind of monotone was a bad call. The sea always looking like slate was a bad call, especially when you get at least one scene when it suddenly looks blue and vibrant. And I don't know why 90% of the sailing shots didn't have the color gradient that they got when they did this Charybdis and Scylla scene, because that looks gorgeous. Like suddenly, again, the water's blue and vibrant and it pops, and then nowhere else in the movie. Literally nowhere else in the movie.
What did you think about the design of Scylla? I've heard some people complain because Scylla in a lot of iterations is like supposed to be a woman with giant wolves attached to her back. In this version, I think I actually said Attack of the Giant Gooseneck Barnacles.
I've seen that. I've seen other versions do Scylla as like a 7-headed dragon. Like there's a lot of different iterations of that. I was fine with turning it into a mollusk. It's a monster. I don't care that much. That's not a hill worth dying on if you disagree. Like there's other ways to do it, but this was fine. The Land of the Dead stuff looks fine. It's got kind of a, haunted look. That's good. The costuming in this movie falls flat on its ass multiple times.
Are you saying that because it breaks the immersion of the time period, or are you saying for another reason? Because all of this kind of just looked like random Fantasyland costuming.
Which, one, I disagree with on a fundamental level to begin with, but two,
No shit.
Hang on. But two, when your outfits for the Trojans just look straight up worse than Wolfgang Petersen's Troy, you've got a problem. That was the most generic Temu-ass costuming I've seen.
I will give you this. There were parts of it where I looked like, did they just 3D print those?
The scene where Menelaus and Telemachus are hunting, they're wearing hoodies. You're lazy, and you're not supposed to be lazy. Do better. That looked terrible.
The biggest complaint I've actually heard was about the ships, because apparently Nolan actually used Viking longships for this, and everyone's like, in what universe would...
But that's why I don't understand why Robert's about to yell and scream at me, because it's like, if Nolan's not going to make a visibly coherent film in antiquity, why should I criticize that? Why should
hang on.
Why should I ask anything else of the movie? This was all an amalgamation of fantasy fuck all. Who cares?
Then send it in Fantasyland, not Greece, would be my counter argument.
We are never going to agree on that. So I've said my piece. Keep going.
No, I'm with you, Mark. I mean, look who played the freaking bard.
Who also should have died at the end, but that's a... So, hang on. I don't care that much about the boat. Yes, it's a Viking longship, not what we know to be at that point, it's a little bit too much like, oh no, they're wearing scale mail when they should have been wearing chain mail. Like, I'm willing to go with you. I'm willing to meet you on some of this. Because, come on, this isn't me saying, good God, Mel Gibson, how could you have everyone put on their kilts backwards? because they did in Braveheart. It's terrible.
No, I didn't know
That's a giant problem.
I just love that you had to quantify in Braveheart. And I was like, oh, really? I thought that was going to be an Apocalypto.
No, the juxtaposition of the wild historical inaccuracy from Braveheart to the meticulous attention to detail in Apocalypto is actually one of the greatest bits of compare and contrast you can have from the same director.
Right. So back to Christopher Nolan.
So I'm not going to complain about the ship. It's close enough. If you're the kind of nerd that gets taken out of the movie by that, there's so much else to complain about. So when I say the costuming falls down, some of it just looks cheap and bad. The Trojan costuming looks cheap and bad. The stuff in Sparta mostly looks cheap and bad.
On a scale of the worst being the spirits people in Snow White, where is it on the scale for you?
The problem is some of it's good, but like you're gonna get me into like some of this as my other complaints.
I just want you to say on the number line where you think it is.
I don't know. On average, 5.
Okay.
The problem is there's a giant chunk of it that's -50.
Okay.
So wait, are you saying that the highest any other part of it is 5, or are you saying that there are some parts that are better than 5?
He's saying on average it's a 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I want to know where the highs and the lows are. If there's a -50.
Okay. The lows, again, the stuff with like Telemachus and Menelaus in Sparta looks terrible. The armor that Menelaus is supposed to be wearing in the final bit is comical. It's very clearly rubber. The way it moves is not leather, and it just looks really, really dumb. Anne Hathaway's mostly is okay. I still really struggle with, again, this is a costuming thing I'm critiquing. I don't know what the hell you were doing with the Lestrygonians. I don't know why your interpretation of, the land of giants is, Brian Shaw in full plate mail. Like, it's just, I don't know what we're doing here. And making what was part of what was different about them be a metallurgical superiority was just a stupid decision.
Why?
Because it does beg the question, well, so wait, has this entire culture evolved completely in isolation, advanced multiple centuries worth of technology further, never interacted with anyone, and no one else has ever even survived to say, boy, they had this stuff that was so much better than bronze?
I mean, hang on. Whoa, stop. So there are some arguments from historians and scholars that say that some cultures in isolation, going way far back in antiquity, did advance further than others. I remember reading somewhere that they were like, I think it's either had Pompeii or Vesuvius not gone up, we'd have had space flight by the time of Columbus.
Which is ridiculous, but the general sentiment I understand, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah. The point being that there have been people who have gone out and studied isolated cultures, and they did, in fact, maybe not to the point of developing fucking steel, which is like, is that what you're hung up on? It was like, there's no fucking way in this magical land of, multicultural people that this isolated tribe of giants didn't develop steel because,
My problem, this is like a giant problem I have with the tone of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It vacillates between no, everything is real and everything's fantasy in a way that is incredibly difficult to remain engaged with.
Robert, I think your argument would have a leg to stand on if the takeaway from that scene wasn't so much the giants and more the fact the trees were moving.
Yeah, that needed Benny Hill music.
I think the point that the young lady is trying to say, the young lady who I've been relatively nice to this evening, is that I get what you're saying, Robert. Pick a lane. Either it's magical or it's fucking not, but you keep deciding it's magical when it suits you and deciding it's not when it suits you. And that's the sort of thing that can break immersion for some of us. It didn't with me. I don't care enough. Clearly it didn't with Alexis. I don't even think she noticed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to complain about the costumes when the trees are moving. It's like, this is
Right.
obviously not based in reality.
So that's the thing. It affected you. It's allowed to affect you. I just need you to succinctly argue why. And that's more, and I need you to tell me more about you than the movie then. Because like I said, for me, this might as well have been Lord of the Rings. For Alexis, this might have well has been Lord of the Rings. And for you, you're like, fucking, this is either Lord of the Rings or it's fucking Batman. What are we doing here? Go ahead.
Yeah, it really is that. It's the lack of consistency around it. It's trying to get by with, I think this might look cool. Okay, but explain it. Why? Why are we here? What's going on? You just had the Cyclops. I'm more okay with, oh, these are giants than these are giants with plate armor. Like, none of it tracks.
Because why not then have laser guns? Is that like,
why not be robots? Why not literally just be an island of golems?
Okay.
Instead of humans at all.
I think the jury understands your point now. Move on.
And making, again, you kind of went half pregnant there, and it didn't work.
Okay. I can, only because I know you well enough and I don't want to spend any more time on this. I get the point that you're making, where it's just like, if you're going to do this, if you're not going to be consistent with the gritty realism and you're going to go so far to the other side of fantasy, then why did you stop there? Got it.
So that is my big gripe about that.
I would say I just sat back and said if I wanted historical accuracy, I would have complained, why didn't Robert Eggers direct this?
Keep going, Robert.
You brought up something I'm gonna get to in a minute. I'd
like to remind everybody we're in an hour and 15 minutes.
I'm aware.
Okay.
Like, you wanted a 30-minute intro where we talked about Nolan's filmography. Don't look at me.
That was
like
more
that.
directed at Alexis, is to let you continue with uninterrupted.
I fully acknowledge the following is a nerdy nitpick. The archery in this movie is terrible.
Let's just read a book.
I was literally about to say, can I go get a book?
Go on, Robert. Tell us about the archery.
There's multiple times when Matt Damon is firing his bow using a pinch grip. You ain't drawing anything over 30 pounds with a pinch grip. And he's got like the strongest bow ever, and he's pinching. No, not how that works. This is the equivalent, for those of you who may be going like, this is a weird thing. He also doesn't shoot it properly 90% of the time, which leads to the archery sequences having no weight to them is my big complaint. If you're going to do archery as a primary form of combat, it needs to be done at least a little bit believably.
Worst archery on film, him or Taron Egerton in Robin Hood?
Neither. Katniss Everdeen.
No, but Taron Egerton used his bow like a machine gun. And there's a lot of rapid fire arrow shooting in this movie. That's why
that's a problem of like conception. This is a problem of mechanics. Like, he's going from anything with a serious draw. You can't actually just start here and pull back. It doesn't work that way. You'll destroy your back muscles. There's ways you have to do this.
See, my takeaway was the awesomeness of having the lyre pluck whenever Odysseus strung the bow, and that awesome bit at the end where he disguised as bigger, plucked it, and then Penelope stopped and turned around. I was like, sorry, that's cool staging.
I'm not complaining about that. That was fine.
No, he's complaining with the actual archery.
It's literally the way he shoots the bow. This is the equivalent of someone. What's a gunplay equivalent? This is a bit like if Keanu Reeves, in John Wick, was going around shooting with the slide locked back in places. No, you should have known better. A little bit of training, for crying out loud. The scene with Telemachus and...
Hang on. It's interesting to see the things that Chris Nolan clearly doesn't give a fuck about. Because I will guarantee you someone else told him about this and he doesn't care. He just doesn't.
Well, I freely acknowledge, for the most part, this doesn't matter.
I go back to what Zack Snyder said about the choreography in 300. It looks cool on camera. Shut up.
It's kind of my impression of Chris Nolan.
My problem is I don't think this looks cool. If it had had a lot of like visual flair to it, I could maybe grit my teeth and bear it. But your big final scene when he's killing all the suitors, he's going to like a quarter draw, and he may as well have a Nerf bow. Like with just like the arrows have the velocity the script demands, not that physics would demand, and I can't bridge the gap here because you've not met me even close to halfway on this.
Okay, next.
So that's an enormous problem. Taking this movie on its own terms, Odysseus is a boring character.
Agreed.
Spending time with him becomes more painful. I've seen the war-torn soldier done so many times and by so many better actors in better movies than this. I didn't need this. And it removed my ability to really engage with a lot of the movie because you wrote a very, very uninteresting character.
Yeah, the most interesting he is to me at least, you may differ. The most interesting he is two places: when he's with Calypso and when he first meets up with Tom Holland.
You would absolutely go with Calypso because they've reduced her to his therapist.
See, I don't judge it because Odysseus is not supposed to be the most interesting person in his story. I compare Odysseus to Alice in Wonderland. The story is not about Odysseus. It is the story about everything that happens around Odysseus. The most interesting characters in the Odyssey are the monsters and the gods and just all of the elements that he encounters along his way.
So again, you wrote a boring character, and I think, again, taking the movie on its own terms, before I talk about why this is a failure of adaptation, because you wrote a flat, mostly uninteresting character who's just another PTSD-riddled war veteran, like we haven't seen that a million times, thematically then you try to marry this with we were the sea people the whole time. Like, come on. Like, I mean this. You be serious. My biggest complaint with this movie, structurally and narratively, is the ending. I hated the ending. I absolutely hated I'm back, but now I must go into exile with my wife. We will sail off into the sunset, and this is the conclusion of the Odyssey. I just about threw a chair, which would have taken some effort because they're all bolted to the floor. I hated the ending. I genuinely hated if you're going to do if your only thematic bit for the Odyssey becomes, oh, I could have gone home any time, but I was too traumatized and drug-addled. You have made a very uninteresting story at its core.
So what are you going to do if this wins Best Picture over Project Hail Mary?
Uninteresting movies have won Best Picture before. I don't care that much. The Oscars have lost almost everything.
Didn't Sinners win it last year, and you still
only one battle after another one.
Oh, even better example of what I'm about to say. Your impression of Robert as being somewhat weak-backed, because like on the one hand, like I get it. I say I saw a thing a certain way, and Robert acts like he's been shot in the chest. On the other hand, Robert is offended by most things and manages to handle it just fine. He'll be okay. I trust. Who wins the Oscars is not going to do Robert's reaction where he gets shot in the chest. Only when I voice an interpretation of something.
That's because I care about your opinion, Mark. I don't care about the Academy at all.
Oh wait, you don't care about my opinion then?
Is your opinion the Academy opinion?
No, you just said I only care about your opinion. So it's like, wait, so what does that make me? Chopped liver?
With cheese. Robert, are you done?
Do you eat chopped liver with cheese? I don't even know.
You don't pair liver and cheese. I think is one of those that you don't really pair. It's like fish. You don't pair fish with cheese.
I'm going to start talking about the Deer Hunter if this doesn't stop.
We're doing that on Thursday, and that's going to be a painful review.
Especially after this.
Hang on. So,
especially if you don't want to talk about traumatized war veterans anymore.
Those are better discussions of the material than this, if you want to draw a one-to-one comparison.
Okay.
So my point there. You've created a very flat character tackling material we've seen a bunch of times that's been done better. And your conclusion is just the boomers should all retire. Bad. Like,
All right.
No.
Hang
on.
Hang on. No. Can you explain that in 20 words or less? Because I don't know where you're getting that from.
Okay. Troy is World War II. Matt Damon is an alcoholic drug addict, or Vietnam, if you prefer your pick. It's a boomer era war. That's the Trojan War.
Oh, I get where you. Okay, I got it. I'm up to speed now. Got it. I didn't see it at first. Now I see it.
Yeah, that's
now
it.
I see the sailboat. Finish.
My last complaint before I talk about adaptation failure, which I hopefully will be able to do briefly. This is an extraordinarily middle-aged movie. Everyone looks the same age. I know Tom Holland has a young face, but he's past the point when he could pass for 16. So Matt Damon is the same age as Anne Hathaway, is the same age as every sailor, is the same age as Calypso, is the same age as Cersei, is the same age as Menelaus, is the same age as Menelaus's kids, is the same age as every parishioner. Every suitor is the same age. You couldn't have one fat bald guy there to represent the 60-year-olds. No, everybody's 40. Everybody's like 38 to 45. Everybody in this movie.
No, that's where John Leguizamo's character comes in.
One. You got one. Like, we couldn't have put in Odysseus' father, who's kind of an important figure in the story. We couldn't have made Menelaus a little older. We couldn't have had more children in play. We couldn't have done... No. Everybody... Calypso couldn't have been a 20-year-old. Like, why? Yeah. I'm not complaining about Charlize Theron. I'm not... She's great.
And Robert makes the case that Calypso should have been Sydney Sweeney. I kid. I make jokes. I'm here to bring levity.
I mean, you kid, but... Cersei... Why does she look like a frumpy 50-year-old?
That was actually an interesting choice because in most iterations, Cersei is a very beautiful woman who seduces Odysseus. She basically says, it's like, okay, I'll turn your men back and then you guys can leave. But first you're going to, fuck my brains out, essentially.
Yeah, they spend about a year there in the poem.
Were you say you were going to give me the hard one? Is that what that was going? You were going to say something else there, then you edited yourself. What were you going to say, Alexis? What sexy thing were you going to say?
No, I was actually trying to come up with something more funny, sexy, and then I just said, screw it. I'm just going to say, fuck your brains out.
I wanted to know what way you were going. I couldn't
give
me the hog, give me the hard one. There was an H in there. Go ahead, Robert.
I think I was going to say hump my brains out, actually, originally. I was like, no, that's stupid.
What are you, Madeline fucking Kahn? Hump my brains out. What are you, in a Mel Brooks movie from 50 years ago? Go ahead, Robert.
I mean, in fairness, that's the same line used in Liar Liar, because they still wanted to keep the PG-13 rating.
And that's not Madeline Kahn. That's the actress from History of the World Part 1. Hump or death. Hump or death.
This is another line I'm thinking of, but I don't care.
Anyway, we'll be here forever if we just quote Mel Brooks lines.
I could think of
there's a depressing homogeneity.
Johnny Dangerously, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh. You wanted to hump her brains out. Va boom, va boom, va boom.
So, point being, you've created a movie where everyone looks about the same age, and it's depressingly monotone. Again, the one old guy you got here is John Leguizamo being aged up, the flaming hypocrite. But so that again, there's a much, much, much better movie to be had in here than what we got. Was my big impression coming out of it. That said, what we got is still good. This is not a bad movie. I go last because I don't mind letting everyone say the positive stuff, so then I air my grievances. As an adaptation of source material, which is a separate grade from taking the movie on its own terms, there's a bunch of choices made here by Nolan and company that I fundamentally don't agree with, and I think the movie is worse for them. First of all, the decision to go, oh no, to beat Troy, we violated the sacred law of the gods. I understand what Nolan is trying to do thematically. That's why I didn't bring it up when I was taking the movie on its own terms. Taken as if even a 7th grader who has done their mythology courses could tell you that's not a violation of Zeus's law. Zeus's law was violated by Paris when he stole Helen. That's why the gods sanctioned the destruction of Troy. Paris was a guest in the house of Menelaus and he stole his wife. This is the impetus, famously the impetus for the whole Trojan War, was the violation of hospitality. You decided to abandon the actual precedent for the war in question because you wanted to self-flagellate about the nature of war. Piss off. You misunderstand the Iliad, means you misunderstand the Odyssey, means you arrive at a bad conclusion. It's a bad understanding of adaptation. It's a bad choice. It's a fundamentally bad choice.
So,
Second,
Mark, what did you think of the Doomsday trailer?
Shut up, Alexis. Go on, Robert.
Second, deciding to remove Achilles from the land of the dead is a categorical mistake. Even within the story Nolan is telling, it's a mistake. Because of what Achilles says to him there and what it's supposed to represent. Instead of a moving sentiment, we get flagellation about draft dodging. Piss off. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about.
Can I
famously
raise an objection here?
Please.
In the great history of movie making and novel writing and whatnot, hasn't there been, don't ask me to name an example of this, and you kind of know it's generally not specifically, people using things to make a different point than what the original author's intent was, which is what he's doing here. I hear your whole argument, but he's clearly not doing a literal interpretation. He's using a piece of antiquity to make a modern point.
More on that in a second. No, what he's doing fundamentally is not without precedent. I'm saying, as a general rule, I think it's bad form, and you have to handle it delicately, and I don't think he does.
That's fair.
So, Achilles, to get to my point about taking Achilles out of the land of the dead. Achilles, famously, is given the choice early in life. You can either die young, but do such great deeds that you will be remembered forever. Or you can live to a ripe old age, live an unremarkable life, and die contentedly and peacefully. Odysseus talks Achilles into going to Troy, by the way, if you don't know the actual gathering of the Greek heroes. Achilles' mother, because Achilles is 15 at the start of the Trojan War, tries to hide him. And Odysseus is the one who flushes him out, and when he talks with him, Odysseus sells him on glory. So there's a little bit of guilt there, small amount. Achilles famously dies young at the Trojan War, at the walls of Troy. And that was the choice he made. And in the land of the dead, when Achilles talks with Odysseus, Odysseus gives him glory and says, "They were already singing songs about you. You will live forever. You know this. It's been prophesied." And Achilles tells him, "I would give up everything to go back and be a servant. Being a servant to a poor farmer is better than being principal of all the dead. What you are doing is noble. Your goal of life is noble. Being alive, savoring it, is better than dying young." It is an important thematic difference between the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it allows one of the great heroes of mythology to have lived the life he wanted to, died young, and to then, from the other side of that result, come back to you with a new perspective. You cut the guts out of that when it actually does service the story you're trying to tell about coming home from war. Foolish and stupid. You also completely neutered the character of Odysseus. You have robbed him of anything interesting about him. Odysseus is yes, a war veteran. He is caustic, clever, funny, prideful. It is actually it is getting on the other side of his pride is the big part of him finally being able to come home. In this, it's just you processed your trauma because everything is trauma in 2026. But you took a character that's supposed to be a trickster, a cunning, thoughtful, intelligent, boastful warrior. Yes, he is humbled over the course of his journey. That's the journey. That's the point. That's the arc he goes on. You took it from him in favor of traumatized war vet stops being a drug addict. Bad adaptation choice to rob your main character of all of his character. Was there any other there was one other adaptation point I wanted to yell about, maybe two. Oh, right. I don't know why you chose to omit Penelope outsmarting Odysseus at the end, Nolan, but
the whole I moved the bed thing to see if he actually remembers. I don't know. I thought that's a good scene in the Odyssey, but I think it would have destroyed the pacing after the action sequence.
Well, that's also because he decided to. I forgot to mention this, but yeah, taken only on its own terms. Odysseus fighting the suitors is poorly lit, chaotic in an uninviting way, overlong, and lacking in actual weight to the action. It needed a lot more massaging and help than it got.
It needed to bang, to bang, to bang.
No, it did not need a different score. It needed better choreography.
Did anyone else laugh, though, at the end when the servant goes, What happened? Did we win?
I didn't need the bathos there, but that's just me. Other people might not hate it.
Wrap this up.
Not showing Mia Goth's character die is gutless. She's a traitor. She's supposed to die in that scene. If you want to omit the part where Telemachus has all the servants who fraternize with the suitors hanged, I'm okay with that. That can be cut. The actual treacherous one who tells Robert Pattinson about Penelope's deception, she needs to die and we need to see it for narrative closure. We don't. She hides in a corner and then nothing.
And the movie forgets about her.
That's just bad. That's just bad writing. That's a bad payoff emotionally to what was going on there.
Sure.
I didn't need Penelope giving a proto-feminist rant to Telemachus. In no small part because Penelope is a wonderful character to begin with. I don't need the modernism of that. In fact, the Odyssey as a poem goes out of like the last stanzas in the Odyssey are exalting Penelope. Because the Odyssey as a poem ends with the suitors being taken to hell by Hermes. And when they get to the land of the dead...
Is the sum total of this, the last 10 minutes, is you're upset Nolan didn't do a literal translation of the Odyssey?
Not literal. I don't need it literally. Again, there's a bunch of stuff that he did cut that I'm fine with. I don't need to see the Lotus Eaters. I don't need 2 of the other stops. Like, I understand the editing process. I understand adaptation. I am not one of those people who said, where's Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings? That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So what is you?
I need you to make better choices when you adapt something like this.
Okay.
You made choices that were bad, that are inexplicable. And it makes this on its own terms, this is a good to great movie in a lot of respects. It's nowhere near the best adaptation of the Odyssey. And that's kind of my problem on that front. You're selling me not a version of the Odyssey, not the Odyssey in space, not the Odyssey in Fantasyland. You're selling me the Odyssey. And you have failed on multiple fronts to properly adapt the Odyssey.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he's saying that. This is
it's called point. The Odyssey. Mark.
if you're gonna be that literal and that dumb, I don't think Nolan in interviews has said that he was intending to do in the way that you're describing an adaptation of the Odyssey. Again, I think he's gone out of his way to say, I would like to take the bones of the Odyssey to tell this more modern story. I can look it up if you want.
I mean, I'm sure he did. It doesn't help that he's working from a bad translation to begin with. This is primary source material.
That was the other thing. Is like he was going off of different. Like, I get a lot of what you're saying, and I don't think it. I believe it has merit, but I think it's so divorced from what his intention was, and you're doing exactly the thing I was trying to avoid. You're in a fight with Chris Nolan over what he should have done. I'm not. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm just saying, like, we're just coming at this two
no,
different
look,
ways.
that's why I did this second. I wanted to talk about the movie on its own terms
that.
first.
That's why, and I let you go for as long as I did, though we're really over now. I wanted you to have your piece, but I'm going to say this, and then we're going to move on. I'm calling an end to this now.
I have one more thing I want to say.
I actively chose to not have a fight with the director and just accept whatever crazy thing he was doing with this piece of literature. And you are in a fight with this director, going, everything that you're doing here is wrong, and you should have done it. You should have done it this way. And I can't tell you what I think a waste of time that is.
I'm aware that I may be screaming into the void. I'm aware of that. But if you want to adapt the Odyssey, call it something else and rename every character, I don't have a problem with that. Not a one.
Fine, then go watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I kind of hate that movie, and I know I'm in the minority.
What, that is an adaptation of the Odyssey?
No, I know.
It's inspired by the Odyssey.
I'm thinking of Life with Eddie Murphy, and then remembering who Robert is. Go ahead, wrap up.
No, it's so weird. Like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is like the only Coen's brother movie I kind of dislike, and I don't know why it didn't resonate with me. I don't. It should. It really should. But yeah, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is inspired by the Odyssey, and nobody complains about the accuracy. But when you call it the Odyssey, you're making a promise.
And the last thing you were going to say.
The last thing I'm going to say, and this is a bigger complaint that I have, but it was really brought into stark relief with this movie. Because if Chris Nolan can't get around this problem, there's almost no one that can. There's maybe two guys in Hollywood right now who can actually make historical films. Everyone else makes 2026 films set in a different time period. I think the only guy going who actually makes historical films genuinely historical is Eggers. The other one might be Tarantino. Like, because if Tarantino, hang on, let me make my point about that. If Tarantino sets a movie in the antebellum South, everyone's going to talk like they're in the antebellum South. We're going to have the demographics of the antebellum South. And we're going to deal with the antebellum South. If we're in the 1970s in Hollywood, everyone's going to talk like they talked in the 1970s in Hollywood. We're not going to get a lot of modern slang. We're not going to get a lot of modernity foisted onto the time period. Eggers is like the only, and then there's everyone else. Okay, I want to make a movie set in the Middle Ages. Well, what are we going to do? Well, the cast has to look like contemporary London or Los Angeles. And we're going to talk about how the King of England is a crippled black boy. That's the loss of the ability to make a historical film where we are transported to the time period for fear of offending somebody, I guess. I don't know. But it's a lost art. And if all Chris Nolan can do with the Odyssey is transplant a contemporary war is bad parable onto it, then nobody else can do it. And that's not just movies, it's television, it's Bridgerton, it's freaking all of it. If you want to do a modern version of the Odyssey where you can cast a modern cast, then set it in modern times. And these complaints should evaporate at that point, unless you're just a disingenuous hack. But when you're doing this, when you're trying to transport something into a period and make a historical period piece, you should be able to do that within the structures and restraints of making a historical period piece. And nobody can do it apart from Eggers, who's brilliant at it. And I lament the loss of that for the modern audiences because it's a skill that nobody seems interested in cultivating anymore.
All right, with that said, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
We're going to speed run this, given the amount of time that we went over. All right. The budget on this was, again, $250 million Marvel monies.
Figure another 150 at least for marketing. You're looking at like 700 million to break even.
I don't know. I think this gets close to $1 billion.
I'm not saying it's not going to. I'm saying that's the math.
The budget on it is currently $264 million. I think this is the highest grossing weekend of any movie this year. This year, though, has also been the drizzling shits.
Hang on. Openings this year have been bad, but the overall box office is on track to actually hit numbers like 2019. It's so weird.
I don't see how, considering what's in the top 10 right now, but it's also, I'm not having a math conversation. As of July 19th,
that's literally just the math of it.
as of July 19th, 2026, the Odyssey has grossed. In 2019, everything in the top 10 made over $1 billion. So far, we're at 2. I'm not saying by the end of the year we won't hit 2019 numbers. I just don't understand how we got there by this point when that's the case.
We're tracking this year to have another box office at the end of it that's over 10 billion.
Okay. We'll see what happens. As of July 19th, 2026, the Odyssey grossed $124 million in the U.S. and Canada and around 140 in other territories for a worldwide total of $264 million. I had a sneaking suspicion this was going to be almost a $300 million opening. Produced on a $250 million budget, The Odyssey is among the most expensive of Nolan's career and is one of the most expensive films ever made. All right. There's a whole sick thing here on ticket sales and whatnot. I'm not reading all of this, especially now. The number one movie of the weekend was, in fact, The Odyssey. It knocked Moana from 1 to 2, and Moana had a 58.4% drop.
Yeah, after a soft opening, that's not great.
Yeah, this thing is. I think the literature on Moana and Supergirl was that those are going to be the two biggest bombs of the year so far. Toy Story 3 is rocking hard. Maintained its spot at 3, 5 weeks out. Minions and Monsters, that's having a bit of a struggle. 2 to 4.
Yeah, it's not quite finding the audience.
Yeah.
You know what? That'll wind up being a big hit on Peacock, is my hunch.
Evil Dead Burn dropped from 4 to 5. The Invite
apparently is getting excoriated by a lot of people. Even horror fans are not fond of Evil Dead Burn.
Okay. The Invite maintained its spot at 6 and opened in a few more theaters. Young Washington, which I've heard got good reviews, fell from 5 to 7. Obsession fell from 7 to 8.
Now
Supergirl 8 to 9. Disclosure Day dropped from 9 to 10. Michael still in theaters, but you can also watch it on PVOD. That went from 17 to 14. The Mandalorian and Grogu get a second life here, jumping up from 19 to 15.
They announced. Hang on, I can tell you why.
Yeah.
Disney came out and officially confirmed The Mandalorian as a property is now dead. So anyone who wanted to say goodbye to those characters one last time had to go see the movie again.
Oh, interesting. Considering, never mind. I don't want to talk about it. We've spent too long. Gail Daughtry dropped from 11 to 16. Master of the Universe is about to be on Amazon.
Yeah.
The Kidnapping of Arabella debuted at 26. American Pachuco, The Legend of Luis Valdez is at 30, and that was the weekend that was. Hey, Alexis, have you ever read Reading Lolita in Tehran?
Have I what?
Hey, Alexis, have you ever read the novel Reading Lolita in Tehran?
No.
You should read it. It's a good book. Basically, a bunch of Iranian housewives form a naughty book club, and the naughty book they read in said naughty book club is Lolita.
Mhm.
And so the book is about that group of people and the one specific lady. Well, I'm mentioning it because I mentioned it because I saw it last week. They've made a movie of it. So in your furthering of your education, you should read the book, Reading Lolita in Ran, because it's phenomenal, won a bunch of awards. It's just an absolutely outstanding book. And then you should watch the movie. I'm going to see if I can find this movie somewhere once it's available, and watch it. I think it's a worthy endeavor. Also, a weird movie to make a movie, weird book to make a movie out of. But I guess that's just where we are in the world. Yeah, really.
Come on, Mark. Anything that can be fun feminist.
So that was the weekend that was worldwide. Still 2 members of the Billionaires Club. Toy Story's close at 9:57.
Again, might cross it, but it's going to be a struggle.
And then we dropped 300 million to fucking Devil Wears Prada, Project Hail Mary, Pegasus 3. We drop another 200 million to Obsession, Hoppers, Backrooms, and Minions and Monsters. Star Wars is out of the top 10. The Odyssey is debuting at 13 between
Minions and
Heights.
Monsters will be out of the top 10 next week.
All right, so really quick, I haven't seen Wuthering Heights yet. Alexis, have you seen Wuthering Heights?
No interest.
There's a shock. Robert, you also have not seen Wuthering Heights for the same reason she's not seeing it.
I have not seen it yet. No, why?
I saw this on TikTok, and try to stay with me. Try to stay with me, Alexis, and be interested in the things that I'm interested in. Try to stay with me, Robert. I would appreciate it if you'd actually engage in this conversation for just a minute, just a small moment, just a little morsel. I saw this on TikTok, and I thought it was interesting because they're comparing Wuthering Heights to the Odyssey in the following way. There was a girl who put up a TikTok, and she did a thing where she put words over her face. And the words were that this is the worst interpretation.
Collapsing.
Something along the lines of this is the worst interpretation of the Odyssey ever, but film bros are going to jerk off to it. Are we going to call them the same names we called the girls who jerked off to Wuthering Heights? The implication being that the Wuthering Heights adaptation was hot garbage and kind of, book talk whorism.
As an adaptation, it absolutely was based on everything.
Right. So every girl who liked Wuthering Heights was also a dumb whore. Are we going to apply, not we 3 judges of the universe, but in general as a culture, are we now going to apply that to the film bros who are going to react the same way to the Odyssey that they did to Wuthering Heights? And she's saying that the adaptation of Wuthering Heights is the same adaptation of the Odyssey in terms of how poorly they were done. Robert, I'm going to go to you first, and then Alexis, by that point, you should have thoughts that are engaged in this conversation. Robert?
I mean, we won't. For the record, anyone...
Because of sexism or something else?
Because setting aside problems of adaptation, the Odyssey is a almost infinitely better movie than Wuthering Heights.
Right. The point she's trying to make, though, and I want to
hang on. I'm aware of the point
is that the guys who like the Odyssey are the same idiots as the girls who like the Wuthering Heights. That's basically the argument.
If I may counter the argument she's allegedly presenting.
Yes.
There's reasons to like the Odyssey beyond it makes my groin tingle. There is no reason to like that Wuthering Heights adaptation beyond I sure do wish my relationship could be like Joker and Harley.
Okay.
That said, if we're just talking adaptation, I don't think that's a bad comparison if we're just talking about, again, how many liberties are taken with the material and to what end. But the version of Wuthering Heights, it messed with the material. 1,000,000% it did. And what came out of it was also very bad. What came out of messing with the Odyssey, because you had a very good director handling it and everything else, was a good movie. So no, we're not going to wind up saying the same things about the film bros that people were saying about the women who liked Wuthering Heights, and not because there's not a comparison to be made in some respects, but because If Wuthering Heights had been overall as good as the Odyssey, then yes, we should. But Wuthering Heights was also just on its own a very bad movie, and that complicates the discussion.
All right, Alexis, you want to take a crack at this and share your thoughts?
Well, I'll admit I didn't really follow a lot of the complaints about Wuthering Heights. The TikToks that I saw about that movie were the couples trying to recreate the lifting the corset with 2 fingers thing.
Yeah, you can't do that.
No, you can't. Margot Robbie stood on a box. It's obvious. But I feel that they're trying to compare it the way people would compare 50 Shades of Grey versus Transformers. The idea is like, just turn your brain off and enjoy what is going to, make that part of your brain go, hell yes.
Is Wuthering Heights the Notebook of 2026?
Well, that's the thing. Again, I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen a lot of criticism about it. I did see people say it's not a good adaptation of the book, but I haven't
it's
seen.
terrible.
I'm sure it is, but I haven't seen people really go into it. And yeah, I saw a lot more people talking about the Notebook and the romantic scenes in it and how passionate that was. Again, I'm not seeing that from Wuthering Heights. The biggest thing I saw from Wuthering Heights, aside from the corset thing, is from Jeremy Johns, who made a joke about, the corset scene. And he said he saw it on a packed night and he could tell a majority of the people in the theater were women. And he said during that scene, he's like, and we need a dehumidifier in this theater now.
I'm gonna have to watch Wuthering Heights. I gotta get, much the same reason that I made myself sit through The Bride. This time, not with my children though. I'll just watch it on my own. Maybe I'll watch it this week. I'm not gonna see my kids for 2 weeks. But I feel like I got to get in on this conversation now with Wuthering Heights.
I just feel like this. I feel like this TikToker is. I get the feeling that she was lambasted for liking Wuthering Heights.
Oh, she was clearly called an idiot whore and couldn't sit with it. So
yeah,
now she's looking to call boys idiot whores for liking the Odyssey, which I respect, but I don't. But my question essentially is she making the right comparison, or is she just attacking?
No, again, like I
said,
she's trying to compare something like 50 Shades of Grey to Transformers. Again, because in her mind, the Odyssey is garbage. But there are parts of it that are going to make the endorphins in our brain go yippee-ki-yay. Mm-hmm. Whereas that is not what the Odyssey is. Despite Robert's ramblings, there is a lot more to it than a Michael Bay thrill ride.
I said it's a good movie. It's going to deserve the vast majority of the accolades it gets.
She's essentially calling the Odyssey a guy flick, and it's like the Odyssey's not a guy flick.
What she's really commenting on is film bros. She's saying, look, if you're going to attack book talk girls, who are the people that went to go see Wuthering Heights, then I'm going to attack film bros. And this is the movie to do that with, in her mind.
Here's the thing.
Which makes me hang on. Which begs the question: worst group of film bros, Snyder Bros or Nolan Bros?
Snyder.
Tarantino.
Boo.
No, see, I'm arguing that.
I showed my kids Pulp Fiction over the weekend. They loved it.
Look, I'm not saying Tarantino's a bad filmmaker. I'm saying talking with his fans is the most insufferable thing in the world.
Go ahead, Alexis.
I'm saying that this girl's argument about book talk, it's like, sweetie, you are not speaking for all book talks, because a lot of book talk girls didn't like the movie. She's trying to get on a pedestal that doesn't exist.
Okay, that's a good point, Alexis, and I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you were part of this discussion. You're a valuable member of our team.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop and for you to just either insult me or tell me you're going to make me review something I don't want to review.
When you misbehaved, I scolded you. When you interrupted Robert, dear sweet Robert, good to his mother, Robert. He needs a place to show his voice, Robert. And you had to bring up the stupid Doomsday trailer, which was all over my TikTok today. And you were rightly scolded for doing so. But no, I'm not.
For the record, that trailer looks like ass.
It really does. I don't want to talk about it. That is a movie that I'm gonna go to and see and just be like, that is like dentistry. Like, just get this over with.
I'll make sure to have reading material when we review it.
You're good.
You may have to do all the talking. Mark and I may just say it sucks.
Yeah, I'm done here. All right, speaking of done here, are we ready to next weekend? There's nothing. We keep checking the calendar. We're going to do Evil Dead Burn.
Yeah, then the week after that is Spider-Man.
But no, this weekend is nothing. The next weekend is Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry. All apologies. Nothing. I don't have it up right this second. Let me grab it really quick. This weekend's movies are the following. Fuck off.
Oh, hey, Robert, do you still have any interest in doing Ice Cream Man? I saw a poster for that when I was leaving the theater today.
I don't remember anything about that.
It's the new Eli Roth horror film.
Yeah, it's another gross Eli Roth movie.
I think I'm going to get my temporary fill of grossness next week.
Okay.
I keep looking for more horror stuff for us to review for Extra Damn in Hollywood.
We have the 24th. What interesting thing about this is either like straight to streaming movies, a bunch of them. There's not a whole lot going into the theaters. There's a Refn movie, but we have The Dink on Apple TV.
So there's a war crime.
72 Hours is on Netflix. Her Private Hell, which is again put out by Neon and is a science fiction horror thriller film produced by Refn.
It's Alexis on any of our podcasts. Only it's no longer a Private Hell.
There's Motor City, which is going to be in theaters, but that's an indie, and that stars the guy who, what's his face, Alan Richson. We have Kill Code, which is another, looks like small time just studio movie. It's probably going to go straight to PVOD. And then we have Haunted Heist, which is all black people. So, having said all that, also on Paramount Plus is Avatar, Aang, The Last Airbender.
It's essentially the 4th season of the animated series.
Right. So that is why we're doing Evil Dead Burn, because there's nothing in the theaters besides the Refn movie worth talking about. So, having said all that, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right. The tomato meter is 95%. We get into it. Top critics. It actually goes up a percentage point to 96. Verified audience is 97. All audiences is 93.
We, at some point, are going to have a discussion about how Rotten Tomatoes has destroyed its own credibility at this point.
Sure. Critical.
Hang on. Just to say, there's a lot of people who have been trying to review this movie. And there's a lot of them whose reviews are being either removed or held back because they're not glowing. Some of them aren't even negative, but
reinvigorating an ancient adventure with majestic sweep and sterling work by its colossal ensemble, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey imbues myth with primal human feeling. And the audience says, a cinematic epic fit for the biggest screens, The Odyssey proves with technical precision and unrestrained grandeur that there's no filmmaker quite like Christopher Nolan to steer Odysseus' voyage home.
That is an accurate summation of how people write. Good AI.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah. While we're looking for a negative review, Robert, I want to pick your brain on something. I brought up Nolan's comments that he wants to do a horror movie next, which, again, based on what we saw with this, I think he's got the chops.
Definitely still. It's been joked before, but he's doing the Kubrick progression.
So I understand they're going to do another Nightmare on Elm Street reboot.
Yep.
What would you think about Chris Nolan doing a Nightmare on Elm Street?
Save us all, God, no.
He's already done the Dream stuff. I think that's not the direction he's going to go.
You know what? I would say, you know what I'd like to see Nolan tackle, even though another director is kind of called dibs on it? I think Nolan would actually be good to do Mountain of Madness. I think Nolan could tackle Lovecraft.
If Nolan could, because he and Guillermo del Toro are, they've never like collaborated, but you know they're friendly. Because Del Toro's had spent a long time trying to do that.
Yeah, that's why I was saying I know another director, and you know how much I love Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah,
but
I think if Guillermo del Toro was willing to take a different, not co-director, a different title, like maybe director of cinematography or something along
At a
those
minimum,
lines.
they should use Del Toro's script because
Mhm.
Del Toro's a better writer than Nolan.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying I've heard this. I was thinking to myself, because I was thinking, what good adaptations would Nolan be good at? And I actually thought he might also do a good non-musical version of Phantom of the Opera, something closer to the 1900s
The original.
I
launch
know
Yeah.
you guys
change style.
I know you guys just shit on this, but I'm going to take one more swing at the same thing. How about Dreamscape? I'm dead serious on that. This is the one where they have the machine and they go into what's his nuts brain, and there's a giant snake creature at the end of it.
Not familiar enough with it to.
Oh no, that's not Dreamscape. That's
No, it's Dreamscape.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. Want me to look it up?
I believe you. I'm confusing it with another movie that has an incredibly similar premise that has Vincent D'Onofrio and Jennifer Lopez
Cell.
in it. Yeah.
I hate that movie because every other scene in that is, those dumbass art
Hang on.
students that we all knew who were like, it's like, ask me about my piece. I want to tell you about my interpretation.
Yeah.
Dreamscape is
That
a
whole movie
1984
screams that.
American science fiction action adventure horror film directed by Joseph Rubin from a story by David Lowery and Chuck Russell. It stars Dennis Quaid, Kate Capshaw, Max von Sydow, Christopher Plummer, and David Patrick Kelly.
No, I think Alexis hit something there with Lovecraft because in no small part because Madness I don't know about, but maybe. So the thing about a lot of Nolan's work, a lot of it has at its core the message that the most important thing is to not waste time and to be where you need to be, especially spending time with your family.
Mhm.
But like the relationship of humanity to time is a big theme of his work, all of it. Sometimes it's a bit more, playing forward and backward, or how we edit the story together to give you a different perspective on time. But I mean, that's all. Inception is all about getting back to your kids. Interstellar is about the importance of love across distance and time, the vastness of it throughout creation. This is all about, like, Oppenheimer touches on that. Like, there's a lot of it. It's a big theme. And there's a lot of Lovecraft stories that play with the way the story is told, so he could have some fun with that. I mean, most of the story of At the Mountains of Madness is told via telegrams being sent back, like wireless reports.
Yeah, it's very like classic Gothic literature, very similar to Dracula and Frankenstein in that manner.
All right, Doug Walker from Channel Awesome, 2 out of 4 stars. Big budget, big cast, big boats. Christopher Nolan has thrown everything into this epic except a reason to care.
In fairness to that point, I was left extraordinarily cold emotionally by this movie for almost its entire runtime. It did hit me at the end, not the actual end, but stuff in the third act, I think, is where it finally, like, the human story finally started paying off, and it just took a long time to get there.
Yasser Medina of Cinephilia, 5 out of 10. It becomes a prolonged act of cultural desecration where Nolan's pretensions clash with a dull and deficient narrative exercise on the ethical consequences of war.
Let me just throw this out there. For a long time, a lot of people have done you've been playing a very stupid game with what matters in a culture. Like, if you're going to tell this story from this culture, here's how you have to do it. And a lot of people have been banging that drum and have been on that soapbox. It's a stupid game that you've been playing. It really is. The stupid prize for playing that stupid game is Nolan does this movie, ignores the actual Greek heritage, and does not cast any Greek people in it, and y'all don't say boo about it because you're hypocrites. I mean, John Leguizamo getting on his soapbox about how there's no Latinos in the Super Mario Brothers movie, to then happily sign on here to play aged up and Greek when he is neither. if you kept your mouth shut about the first one because all you were was bitter you didn't get a job, no one would be pointing out your hypocrisy here.
On the one hand, I can't argue your logic. On the other hand, I care so little about this subject. I really don't.
I'm aware. We can move on.
Give a fuck about any of it.
It's just you play a stupid game, that petard is going to hoist you.
To be clear,
both sides of the aisle on that.
To be clear, I didn't care about it when we were talking about it last week with how important it was to the fucking Rock that he do an all Samoan movie. I still don't care about it when everyone's mad they didn't do an all Greek movie of the Odyssey. Jesus Christ, all of you fucking touch grass. Get lives.
Hey, Mark, look, most of us were, the vast majority of people, left, right, and center, were in fact over this. Never wanted to go down this road. But then a subset of humanity decided that they had to justify their academic pursuits and decided this was the hill they were going to die on.
Hang on, it's not just that, though. Like, again, I go back to, a lot of the videos. Weird Drinker hasn't done one on this yet. I was looking for it. But I watched Gary's video on this. Yeah, I'm actually done with it. Actually, no, I got it. Hang on. I'm going to interrupt myself just so I can do Armin White, and then I'm done with this.
Okay.
Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey sells IMAX, not cinema. Billed as the biggest of big movies. Titanic meets The Lord of the Rings with some megalopolis thrown in. It continues the corruption of modern movie culture that Nolan started with The Dark Knight.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was reading that while you guys were talking. I'm like, I'm sorry. Is this dude just anti-big budget films?
Yes.
Pretty much. Like he's what you think I am.
It's the best description ever. So anyway, I watched Gary's Nerdrotics video on this, and I generally don't leave comments on anything because I am also a content creator, and I don't like it when negative comments are said about me. So, do as I say. Treat people as you want to be treated. But
Zeus's law.
But
reducing Zeus's law and hospitality to the golden rule.
Is there any way I could ever finish a sentence?
It's another thing I could have complained about that I didn't earlier. So, never mind.
What, that you two have the worst case of ADHD I've ever seen? Listening to Gary talk, I actually wrote a comment on his thing that was like, "You have become so disingenuous, I can't take your fucking videos seriously anymore." Like, between him and Andre, and these were the two biggest offenders of this, I watched some of their videos about the Odyssey, and I think that's part of where a lot of my antipathy is coming from, is they came preloaded to fucking hate this movie because of the multiracial casting and all of that, because they have to make a living at making YouTube videos that drum up hatred. And when I think they have a point, I'm okay with it. When I think it's just to chum water, it gets really frustrating. And I hear David write somewhere out there saying, then don't watch the videos. Okay, but I would like to know what other people think of things. I can generally hold multiple opinions in my hand, unlike most people, and be okay with it without it affecting me. My point here is that this seemed almost, I'm not being conspiratorial when I say this, but almost purposeful. Like we're done with Supergirl now. What's next on the list? Oh, the Odyssey. Yeah, we got to hate that now too. And it's like, well, what are good reasons to hate this movie? This, and this. Okay, good. Videos make video. And it's like, what's next on the list? What
Spider-Man.
What is next on? I haven't seen anything yet, but when I watch some of the stuff on YouTube, I was like, what's next on the list of things you have to hate in order to continue to pay your rent? And that, more than anything else, regarding this or any other movie, is really upsetting to me. It's really super frustrating.
If you don't mind me explaining a little bit how we got here. Because I don't think you're
do
wrong.
It in 50 words or less, sure.
Sure. Society was generally past all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely. Not going to pretend we didn't live in a utopia in the 90s. But the 1990s were about as close as, and the early 2000s, were about as close as we ever got to being post-racial.
Mm-hmm.
Before the internet.
Also that. But we had all kind of like, okay, we're done with this. Like, yes, okay, I had a racist grandparent. What about you? Yeah, racist grandparent. Yeah, racist grandparent. Yeah, violent grandparent. Yeah, whatever. But we were all taught to take Martin Luther King seriously when he said, don't judge someone by the color of their skin, judge them by the content of their character. Full stop. And that was a thing we all took seriously. And we started making progress. Like, I mean this in all sincerity. 1970 to about 1995 is one of the most remarkable periods of human integration that you will see across human history. It's not perfect. I'm not going to pretend it is. But how many times in that period of time did we actively regress? There were growing pains, and there were problems, and there were stumbles. Yes. There were echoes of the old system that still wanted to stay violent and segregated and all that, again, all that crap. But we were moving past it. Like, you could see progress. And then in the late aughts, heading into the teens, the class of people who had made their livelihood off of we must rise up against the white man realized they had risen up against the white man and it was all going pretty good. But oh crap, my checkbook is not good anymore. This is where you started getting the hustlers. This is all Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson have done for 40 years. What may have started in a necessary and good place turned into a grift. That's all it did.
Yep.
But they kept doing it because that's all they knew how to do. So we reignite all of this crap. Only now we have the internet so everyone can talk to each other. And now we have a bunch of academics who have to justify, again, horrible degrees in this stuff. So what do? They screech and they holler and they find stuff to complain about through an academic lens. And they do this over and over and over again. And then by the time you get to about 2012, we've regressed. Everything that you used to like is now bad. Here's why. Here's why everything has to be representative in this direction. Here's all this crappy academic theory that is now being trumpeted writ large with no response because we're all supposed to just shut up and listen. We are told over and over and over again, you can't comment, listen to someone else's truth. And it's galling and aggravating. Hang on.
I'm with you, but
I'm going to get to the point.
I think what I'm pointing out is the giant overreaction, and it isn't going away for the exact reason you just said.
Yes.
Because now the overreaction is now institutionalized, and everyone has to, it's not an overreaction anymore. It's just the thing people do. And I'm bored by it.
It's not good. And the problem is we didn't stop it when we should have stopped it before. So then that went up there. This goes up here as the response, and now there's no going back.
Yeah,
we're just stuck where we are now because nobody.
I get that. Like a lot of the guys I'm complaining about are reacting to what they think is what they are perceiving as a slight by Hollywood and the academics and so on and so forth. And so it's just again, they're having a fight with each other, except that neither one of them is in the same ring. It's hilarious to me. But I'll tell you last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll end the show. Where I don't see this sort of thing as much is on TikTok, because I've now seen a couple of different waves of this. Superman, Supergirl, this. I saw more even-handed takes on those movies than I've seen on YouTube. There's one woman I want to call out really, really quick. And I think this is like probably what broke me. I haven't actually watched the video, but Sydney Watson, when she was doing cultural commentary, I thought had some pretty interesting things to say, especially from a right-leaning place. And I thought the way she did it, she, kind of like me, even tone, just sort of speaking to people, seemed nice, somewhat affable. I was like, okay, I like your presentation. I like most of the things that you're saying. This is fine. Even her videos have gotten ridiculous. Like, she's done a couple now on the Odyssey, and it was clear the woman hadn't seen the movie. And granted, I've watched some of her other takes on movies, and it definitely looked like she used ChatGPT to do the research and didn't actually watch the fucking movies herself or do the research herself. But that's what I mean. Like, I think it's why I'm galled by it right now, because like when Andre does it and Gary does it, Like, well, you're just doing the same thing you always do. Fine, I really do need to get over it. I see Sydney watching doing it, and it's like, this just seems like pile on. Because now on my feed, because I click on this stuff, I see every other Tom, Dick, and Harry and their stupid videos, and they all have the same take.
Let me tell you that TikTok is not actually better for this.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok's algorithmic suggestions are less responsive and overblown than YouTube's, is all you're getting. I guarantee you, if you actually looked for it, you'd find significantly worse reactions on TikTok.
If I started clicking on, like, again, I was glad that the one girl's TikTok did come up, where she was comparing the Odyssey to Wuthering Heights, because I actually thought it was interesting. Whether or not I agreed with her is immaterial. I actually just thought it was kind of a clever look at the comparison between the two, more on a cultural basis than on the movie basis. Now you're saying it's there. I just haven't found it, or it hasn't been shoved at me via algorithm. But I don't see that on YouTube as much. I very much see everything is polarized on YouTube. I don't necessarily get everything is polarized on TikTok. So let me just say that. And
that is almost entirely just down to the way they recommend stuff. It's their algorithms being different.
I would be willing to believe it's because of the stuff that I like or don't like or watch all the way through or not all the way through. But all right, with that said, Alexis would like to go home now. So that is
we are still shorter than the movie.
That is the end of our review of the Odyssey. Alexis, go ahead and do your plugs.
All right. So aside from coming up from a few Damn You Hollywoods, I will be returning with a couple of new TV party tonights in August. We're going to be taking a look at House of the Dragon Season 3 and the Season 2 of X-Men 97. Working on getting those on the schedule, but I'm probably going to have to do like back-to-back TV party tonights at the end of that month. Just try to get them in when I'm not traveling, because August is going to be a little crazy for me and my company. That is Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic, because we have 3 back-to-back shows this August. We are going to be appearing at Comic-Con Nebraska and Omaha, and then we're going to be at KC Crypticon. Got a little excited about that last night because they just confirmed Billy Zane's going to be one of the guests of honor there.
Yeah, he's always fun.
Oh, I love Billy Zane. Demon Knight is one of my favorite cheesy horror movies. I love that film.
I like the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. And after that, we're going to be heading to Colorado Springs Comic-Con. Looking forward to that because the cast of Hell of a Boss and Has-Been Hotel are coming in. They always bring in the fans. And we're going to be having a little reunion of stars from A League of Their Own. So I am currently working on some Rockford Peaches earrings, which I can't wait to debut. As always, we're available on Facebook, where our stuff is available on Etsy and handmade at Amazon. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
All right, this Thursday, Jason lost a bet, and we decided that the way that we were going to deal with him losing this bet is to, apparently he's actually seen some of these, so this isn't nearly as funny as I wanted it to be. But we're going to introduce him to gritty 70s cinema, the way cinema was meant to be, the way cinema should have always been. We're going to look at The Deer Hunter, Deliverance, and other things that rhyme with D.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon. So I watched Dog Day Afternoon with my kids. They loved it. Just thought it was the best thing ever. Also, Dog Day Afternoon, unintentionally the funniest comedy I've seen this year.
It is definitely up there when you look at the ineptitude. It's
also, I have realized after watching that movie, I have been Al Pacino in that movie, and I have had every single conversation. And I have had every single conversation he has had in that movie. What a day he has.
There are some really awkward conversations that he has in that movie.
Well, just the look on his face when he is trying to absorb and emotionally regulate everybody around him, and he is just ready to rip his own head off. I sympathize. I empathize.
Then he calls his wife.
Oh, God. Will you shut the... It's like every podcast with Alexis. Will you shut the fuck up and let me talk?
I knew you couldn't wait. I knew you couldn't be nice to me throughout the whole thing.
I'm just saying, like, my life, if I was a bank robber, is Dog Day Afternoon. It's so good. It's the best thing about that is I said that line a bunch while I was watching. Like I'd watch Al Pacino say something, and I would go, "Oh my god, I've done that. I've been that. I feel that." And my daughter would just pat me. She's like, "It's okay, father. It's okay." Or I would
So
say
she's
something
your
else,
John Caviezel.
and I would say something else like, "Oh my god, I've said that. I've done that. I've been that. That's me. That's my life." Like I would say a lot of times about that movie, I just kept saying "story of my life," and she was just like, "I'm sorry, everyone hurt you, father." It was nice. It was nice to have my daughter there to hold my hand and get me through that movie as I looked into the
into the dark mirror of your
yeah. I looked into the horizon and saw nothing but death.
The recesses of your soul, and
yeah.
Just joined Robert in screaming into the void.
So
I sing to the void. I don't scream to it.
So we're gonna have fun talking that. Have you ever just yes or no? Have you ever seen Dog Day Afternoon, Alexis?
Mm-mm.
You should watch it. Go watch that and read Lolita and Turan. There's your homework. Have you ever seen Deliverance?
Wait, you asked me this when we reviewed The Bear last week.
It's okay. Robert didn't hear those answers.
I said the only scene from Deliverance I've seen was the guitar banjo duel scene.
All right, watch the whole thing. You really can't be a film student, film snob, and not have seen Deliverance. Have you seen The Deer Hunter all the way through?
No.
Yeah, you really should.
I've got a guy I'm dating now who keeps finding out these movies I haven't seen. It's like, how are you a film critic and you haven't watched all of these?
Give him my number. Him and I should talk. So anyway, that's this Thursday. Next week is Evil Dead Burn. And
poor Mark. Mark's gonna. This might be the one that Mark goes. We're done.
Yeah.
Gross.
I actually added a podcast into next year, so we'll 2028. That I haven't booked that year yet, so maybe then. But 2027 is pretty booked out. And then Thursday ends the month of July for us, and we're ending it on a triple feature. Kat will be back, presumably. Sean will be here, and we're going to look at Molly Ringwald. My girlfriend will finally get to watch Pretty in Pink with me, which she's been bugging me about all month. And we're going to also watch The Pickup Artist and For Keeps. So that's me. What about you, Robert?
I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. Pro bono at the moment.
Really? Do we need to talk after this about why you're not getting paid?
Because whoever's in charge of paying me hasn't paid me yet.
Keep going.
Not a voluntary thing on my end.
Yeah, and we all got it there, Slappy.
So that's what I cover over there. This last Saturday was UFC Fight Night 281. They were in Oklahoma City. Dricus du Plessis beat up Kamaru Usman for 5 rounds and has now defeated 2 of the 3 African kings. Because he choked out Israel Adesanya. Now he beat up Kamaru Usman. The only one he hasn't beaten is Francis Ngannou, which would not go well for him. But the joke there is, for those of you who don't know, is Dricus du Plessis is South African. So he's actually, it's a whole thing. He got into it with Izzy over it. Doesn't matter. So my full review of that, you can find the full written report in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. I talked about the fights on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, which goes live around sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. Eastern Time, more or less, depending on how the rest of my life goes that day. We also previewed the upcoming card. They will be in Abu Dhabi. The main cards, or the prelims, start at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for this one. It's not a very good card. They're just collecting a giant site fee from the rich Arabs. And Fridays, I cover WWE SmackDown, which seems to be a little bit moving up after several weeks of just dreck. So nice to see them moving in the right direction, if nothing else.
I heard SummerSlam's in trouble.
They're not moving all that many. Their ticket sales have not been great.
Yeah.
Well, what do you expect when your main event is Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins again? We're just Shield lore and Bloodline lore collide again. No one cares. On the other side of the equation, you have CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, which will be fine. They got a few weeks to build it.
So they also got Brock and Obafemi in the Hell in the Cell.
Shockingly, no one cares. It's maybe the best built match on that card, unironically. But we all know Brock's done.
Yeah.
Like, they had to back up a truck to get him to unretire for this match. He ain't going over. So yeah, I cover that every week, and I pinch in on occasion in other zones. I've done some AEW stuff. I've done other WWE properties. You know, you can find me over there. So check me out over there. And as Mark mentioned, I got shanghaied into the triple feature of 70s movies that was meant to punish Jason. I don't know how I got roped into that. That's all I'm saying.
Because you were on the podcast at the time, and why are you like balking at the opportunity to talk about 3 great movies, you psycho? It's not like I'm making you talk about Boys in the Hood, Juice, and fucking Menace to Society.
That's because you don't want to get demonetized.
My point is, don't be an asshole. Like here, come talk about great films. You know, Mr. Everything Sucks and I Hate Everybody and Fuck Your Mother. And they're like, oh, good. Well, come over here and talk about some good films. No, not that. Like, why?
Mark, because, and you and I both know this, what kind of conversation are we going to have about this? It's great. Here's what's great about Al Pacino. Here's what's great about the setting. Here's what's great about this acting performance. Here's what's great about. I miss the 70s cinema. Oh, everything now sucks. That's where we're going to end up.
Nice things, psychopath. Jesus, just come on and fucking gush. Then who cares?
It just doesn't engender.
See what I'm dealing with here.
I will be there and I will do the thing because I'm a professional. Damn it!
Fucking dance, monkey. I'm tired of you listening to you talk.
Fine, I will be there. I will dance. I will say nice things about most of that, and we'll be out of there in 40 minutes.
Sounds great. Best podcast we're ever gonna do.
And that's assuming Jason doesn't show up.
And everyone says I'm the mean one. All right, I think we're done now, right?
Don't forget, Robert, if you're up for it, Jason and I are going to be doing Crystal Lake in October.
I got to think about that one. I'm
so glad I was able to bail out of that. When he asked me about it, he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about we should do this." I was like, "I'm thinking you should do your own podcast."
Part of my problem there is like, you want me to root against Linda Cardellini? Like, whatever those mean people do to her, she deserves her vengeance now, and I don't want to root for that character. But
all right, for Robert Winfrey, for Alexis Hannah, I have TikToks to make. Be well, be safe, and behave.